Chair, you have a live mic.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. We have a couple very special guests this morning to get us started off right. We have Pastor Greg Ball, from Destiny Church, who will lead us in the invocation. And following the invocation, we have Sergeant First Class Lawrence Thomas Rice, Palmetto Ridge ROTC, one of the Bears. He's going to lead us in the pledge. So, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. Could everyone please stand? Lord, your word teaches us in Thessalonians that in everything we give thanks. I am so blessed and honored to be a part of this meeting today, to open this meeting with prayer. We ask that you would give our leaders wisdom. Lord, we thank you for the county commissioners and what a blessing it is to have them serving in our county. And Solomon was asked of God, what could he do for him? And Solomon asked God, give him an understanding heart. And today, Lord, I ask that you would give understanding hearts to the commissioners, Lord, and that they would lead with integrity and lead with wisdom. And I bless them today, and I bless this meeting. Lord, your word says in Proverbs 4:7 that wisdom is the principal thing. So ask God that you would give wisdom in the meeting today, and let the atmosphere of the room be one of peace and love. And we thank you for that. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
And Sergeant Rice, if you'd come on up here, and that's fine, and just lead us in the pledge, and then you're welcome to.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you'd like to go to the podium there, tell us a little bit about what your plans are when you finish your high school education.
Hello, my name is Lawrence Thomas Rice, and when I get out of high school, I want to be in the Marines, a Marine officer. And after I'm done with Marines, I want to go work. Pretty much it.
Yep.
That's enough.
Let's say, thank you for being here, and look forward to your service in the military and beyond. So again, thank you. And thank you, Mr. I forget what rank you were.
I'm the Junior Vice Commander of the VFW.
Yeah. Okay. I want to thank you for being here with your son and your the other kids you have here with you. All right. Thank you. Ms. Patterson?
Commissioners, agenda changes for June 10th, 2025. First, we have item 11B. This is our time certain item to be heard at 1 p.m. It's a recommendation to accept a presentation from consulting firm Mission Critical Partners related to an upgrade strategies for the P25 800 megahertz public safety radio system. Next is item 16K2 being requested to move to item 11C. This item was previously noted to be continued to the July 8th, 2025 BCC meeting. This is a recommendation to provide direction to advertise an ordinance establishing the Clam Bay Advisory Committee to provide recommendations to the board on matters affecting the entire Clam Bay estuary system. This is being moved at Commissioner McDaniel's request. We have add-on item 15C1, which is a discussion to consider the repeal of the Collier County burn ban on outdoor burning and incendiary devices. And we do have another time certain item, item 11A, to be heard at 10:30 a.m., which is consideration of the Fourth Amendment to the Land Contract and Naming Rights Agreement with David Lawrence Mental Health Center Incorporated for behavioral health center operations and funding use. We do have court reporter breaks scheduled for 10:30 and 2:50. With that, County Attorney.
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioners, any changes or disclosures?
Commissioner Kowal.
I have no changes, and I have no disclosures on the consent agenda for ex parte.
Commissioner Hall.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. I have no changes and no ex parte.
Commissioner McDaniel.
I have no changes nor any ex parte, sir.
Commissioner LaCastro.
Same for me, no changes, no ex parte.
I have no changes and no ex parte as well.
If we could get a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second to accept the agenda as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passed unanimously. We'll move on to Proclamations?
Proclamations. Item 4A is a proclamation recognizing the Delta Alpha Epsilon Zeta chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Inc. to be accepted by Deborah Pollock, Z Hope, Zeta's Helping Other People Excel coordinator. Congratulations.
Good morning.
Congratulations. Okay. Here's the hardware, ma'am. You gotta get that. That's a big thing. That's it. Thanks for all you do. Yeah. Thanks for all you guys do. Yeah. Thanks for all you do. Congratulations. Sure.
Simon says.
Good morning to everyone. I'd like to just say a brief little something about our organization. Zeta Phi Beta was founded in 1920 at Howard University, and Delta Alpha Epsilon Zeta chapter was chartered here in Collier County in 2021. Since that time, we have been partnering with the Naples Shelter for Abused Women and Children, the March of Dimes, where we came in as the number 3 and 4 leader in collections for the Southwest Florida. We've also been partnering with our adopted school, Herbert Cambridge Elementary, and we have been working with the homeless people, excuse me, and feeding the hungry. And one of our big initiatives right now is Good Health Wins, which was developed by the National Council of Negro Women. And basically what the purpose of the program is to advocate for people to find out about vaccinations and get them so they can be protected from the COVID, the flu, or whatever illnesses are spreadable. And so we go out and we advocate for that. We share the information. We also, this weekend, we'll be having our inaugural Finer en Blanc Gala, which is kind of like dinner en Blanc in France, but we'll be indoors. And the purpose of it is to raise funds so that we can carry out our initiatives through the next sorority year. At that time, we will also be presenting scholarships to college-bound high school seniors from Collier County, as we have done for the past 3 years. We are a small group, but we are a mighty group. And our motto is, service is what we do. Thank you very much for having us and for this great proclamation.
Absolutely.
Thank you for all you do for the community. And
Commissioners, if we could get a motion to accept the proclamation.
we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, pass unanimously. Again, thank you.
Item 5A is a presentation of the Collier County Business of the Quarter for June 2025 to NAMI Collier County. The award will be accepted by representatives of NAMI Collier County and the Greater Naples Chamber of Commerce. Congratulations.
Hey, thanks for all you guys do. Yeah. Thanks for all you guys do. Yeah. Thanks for everything you do.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of our NAMI Collier family, we truly thank you for this recognition. On behalf of you all and the Naples Chamber, NAMI Collier serves from toddlers all the way to our seniors and veterans, and all of our no-cost, no waiting list services are really truly making a difference day to day in the lives of our community. So our motto is small enough to care but big enough to make a difference, and you are all part of that. So thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you.
Thank you for all that you do, and obviously today may be a very big day for mental health in Collier County, so I assume you're going to stick around for a while.
We sure will. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. We appreciate your support. Thank you.
If I could turn your attention to the back of the room for the Artist of the Month. June's exhibit of the month is presented by the Museum Division and is entitled Just Beachy, Our Most Enduring Attraction. A vacation on Naples Beach was once a rustic lifestyle choice. It is now a more sophisticated one. As the area's culture has changed and the skyline has evolved, one thing remains true. The beaches are still a place where sea and sand come together to enchant visitors young and old. These panels offer a journey through the hourglass of time, a journey in sand. Please enjoy a bit of beachy history courtesy of the Collier County Museums. With that, we move on to item 7, public comments.
Good morning. We have 7 registered speakers under item 7. I'm going to remind the speakers to please queue up at both podiums. You'll have 3 minutes. You'll hear 1 beep at 30 seconds remaining on your time. Our first speaker is Timothy Maloney. He will be followed by William Mayers.
Good morning. Timothy Maloney for the record. I came in this morning to call on my commissioners and county staff to put an end to the misery and the nightmare that we're experiencing and do the right thing, uphold your codes, ordinances, and maybe even adhere to the language in your rural Golden Gate Estates growth master plan, limiting illegal commercial activity. It's been a long haul, it's been going on for a long time, and I think our journey, my neighbors and myself, I think it's testament to how this whole thing got out of hand. It's been a year, we've had no results. You guys have the power to do something about this, and there's been no consideration all the way through this for the homeowners. It's been strictly twisting and contorting these illegal commercial activities, trying to make them fit in our neighborhoods, try to make them legal. And it seems to me there's got to be some agenda. I don't know if it's going to expose some other interest or going to expose more problems in the estates, but we got 172 square miles in the estates. If this activity continues, congratulations, you've just made the largest industrial park in the state of Florida, and that's why we need to get a handle on this now, and that's what I'm asking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your next speaker is William Mayers. He'll be followed by Jay Colhagen.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I was going to, if you don't mind, I was going to let Mr. Mears speak. It's the same topic.
That'd be fine.
And then we'll get into the
Mr. Mayers.
resolution of it.
I'm sorry, William.
Yes, William Mayers. Thank your time for the commissioners. I'm a 25-year resident of the E Estates, Golden Gate Estates, just half a block off of 951 and Pine Ridge. So what I wanted to do today on my 3 minutes is talk about the Golden Gate Estates Master Plan 2019. And in there, I want to read one paragraph. It's policy number 1.4.2. It says, the county's code enforcement board shall strictly enforce the land development code and other applicable codes and laws to control the illegal storage of machinery, vehicles, and junk, and the illegal operation of commercial activities within the Golden Gate Estates. So Tim and I mean, we know the intent of that is because right now in Golden Gate Estates, there's no regulation on parking of commercial vehicles. There's no regulation on commercial activities in the Golden Gate Estates. And so that's one of the reasons back in 2019 why that was embedded in there is to give Tim and I some protection, residents, for illegal operations that's happening like right next to our door where a person's running 5 to 10 to 15 commercial landscape trucks out of there. So On May the 22nd, Tim and I met with the county manager, the assistant county manager, and the attorney for Collier County. And during that meeting, all we wanted to talk about was this Golden Gate master plan, because it addresses commercial activity. And during that meeting, we confirmed that, as an example, landscape companies, they can move into Golden Gate Estates, they can purchase 2 acres, 3 acres, they can park their rigs, they can run a commercial operation out of there unabated. But they still, they still fall under the violation of this policy where you can't have illegal activities, commercial activities. So I guess what Tim and I are asking is that, and it used to be enforced. It used to be enforced, and over, I don't know, the last year or so, it's just fallen off the radar, and it hasn't been enforced. So that's what we're asking. Can we get the code department to enforce that code? And it can be done today, because right now, if we wait until the home-based business and parking of commercial vehicles gets embedded into Collier County for e-estates, I mean, it could be a year before we happen. So what we're asking is, can we take care of this commercial activities? Even Ray Bellows, on July the 18th, we had a determination on this fellow that lives next to us.
Mr. Mears, your time is up, so.
Okay.
Commissioner McDaniel?
Yes, and if I may, just, and I know it is, you're all done, William. Thank you.
Okay.
I know we don't regularly have interaction with folks in this portion of our meeting, but I wanted the community to hear the efforts that are in fact ongoing, and then ask some questions with regard to our senior staff, if I may, about the enforcement activities and so on.
Yes, I had asked Mr. Mears and Mr. Maloney to come here this morning.
Oh, okay, perfect.
So that all 5 of us could hear what was going on and so staff could respond. I also recognize that we don't generally do that, but it seemed to be a pretty critical issue and one that over a long period of time hasn't been resolved. I thought this would be the most
Agreed.
effective way to do it.
You and I have been dealing with it for many years, sir, so. Mr. Posey.
Mike Posey, Planning and Zoning Director. And just to let you know, this item will, the topic that we're discussing here will be in front of you at a later date as a future land development code amendment. It's currently going through the process. It's currently scheduled to go with DSAC subcommittee, and then it has a full DSAC, and then it has the Planning Commission. Both of those bodies will make recommendations, and then finally will be presented to the Board of County Commissioners for either approval or denial, related to the manner in which you can park commercial vehicles in the estates, and as well as home-based businesses. One of the things that has complicated the matter, and just to let you know that Mr. I&D Marino is actively working the code case that the gentlemen were referring to. So that is in that is in the process with the code enforcement. But one of the things that I wanted to point out is one of the conflicts is the state statute. The state statute has stepped over and has influenced how we can apply our local codes in terms of home-based businesses. And because of that, we've been working with the county's attorney's office to provide a clearer path for our staff, for our code enforcement staff, for our permit issuing staff related to who provide for the home occupations, what does and what does not qualify. That's been a process that's been ongoing, and that will be culminated with the LDC amendment that's going to be, because it's not only are we going to have the commercial vehicle restrictions, but how home businesses are to be regulated within the estates. And that's something we currently do not have a clear path on, like I said, because the statute has complicated and has provided for overreach as to what we currently have on the books.
Commissioner?
And so with regard to that, my understanding is the preemptive statute that is out there has timelines for additional restrictions that can be implemented within our LDC, within our growth management plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what is that timeline extended to now? Do you recall?
I mean, not a timeline. What it says is you can regulate where commercial vehicles are parked.
Maybe you misinterpreted my question. The preemptive statute that prohibits us from adding any additional restrictions.
Yes, I understand. That has been extended to October 1st of 2027.
Okay. And so now my next question is for our county attorney with regard to, if you will, deliberate action or an action that would be necessarily in conflict with that statute. How would that circumstance be mitigated?
I would not bring forward an ordinance that was conflict with the state statute. That said, the state statute leaves us little holes to fill that we can fill.
Okay. So, and the efforts for filling those holes are ongoing, and do you have a timeline? Because I've been speaking, as Commissioner Saunders has, I've been speaking with Mr. Maloney and Bill for a while, maybe too long for Maloney. But when are the adjustments to the LDC and GMP coming to us?
As I've said, they have a date with the subcommittee.
Which subcommittee?
DSAC subcommittee.
Okay.
And Planning Commission is expected to be in October, so that I would say November, December for the Board of County Commissioners.
Very good. Now, can I ask Jamie to come up? Mr. French? Jamie French? With regard to the specific circumstances that are transpiring next to these gentlemen's home, where are we at with that code enforcement transaction, for lack of a better term?
Yes, sir. So for the record, my name is Jamie French. I'm your department head for growth management, community development. Mr. Andy Marino, your code enforcement director, has had this case in front of your special magistrate. There has been some proactive steps taken by the property owner. The property owner has actually moved his business to a storefront, is my understanding, and Tom is here. So now what he does is, I believe he's got his employees that are leasing the house. So these are their company vehicles, and there's no regulation in the estates. You can park on grass, you can store. So even though the Golden Gate Estates is a residential community, it has an overlay, and that overlay allows for parking on grass, storage of materials, storage of these type of vehicles. And currently there's no regulatory times, and that's why we're really looking at this with Mr. Klatzkow and his staff as far as how we can address this by ordinance versus trying to make broad brush changes to your land development code that may in fact be in conflict with the state's preemption. So we are currently looking at that, and this board directed us to take it back through the iterations of your DSAC as well as the Planning Commission, and then we'll bring it back here. And listen, if we can bring it back sooner, we most certainly will. We'll have this in front of your DSAC, hopefully your full committee by September, and then we can preemptively strike and at least get it maybe moved up in front of the Planning Commission so that we can do our very best to expedite it for your consideration.
Hey, I guess my only question is so there per our staff's interpretation, per our county attorney's interpretation, there's nothing we can do with regard to these activities that are transpiring now?
This is
even though that's okay, but even though my interpretation, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but my interpretation of the GMP prohibits commercial activities in the estates.
The business is no longer registered to the home. The home is owned by the business, and he's leasing to the employees. This is their work trucks that they're driving to the house, where they live. That's my understanding.
And this is not a public discussion right now. We're just having discussions with our staff.
Now, if they're doing an illegal activity, let's say they're dumping yard debris or something like that, clearly we will exercise the code to make sure that illegal dumping doesn't occur.
We have done that in the past on the site.
We have
already.
Yes.
There were several illegal activities that have ceased, if I recall.
You are correct, sir.
Okay.
Commissioner LaCastro.
Thank you, Chairman. So I can appreciate the specifics of this one particular person that we're talking about who's skirting the holes, as our county attorney said that we need to fill. But are there people within Golden Gate that are in clear violation of what we already have in print that are it's so black and white, and we don't have to wait till October? We can take action and against those people who are maybe don't have as complicated as of a case of this one particular person we're talking about, because it sounds like from the citizens it's not just this one house. There's other varying degrees. My thought is you go after the low-hanging fruit that isn't such a complicated case, and you send a signal to the whole community that we're no longer ignoring it. The impression I'm getting, this isn't my district, but I can appreciate the argument, is that this one particular person we're talking about is maybe the most extreme, and he's smarter than everybody else, and he's renting his house to people, and he's dodging some bullets and whatnot. But it sounds like there's also people that are just parking trucks all over their lawn, running a welding business out of their house, things that we already have in print that say are illegal, unethical, immoral, against our county code. Are there large numbers of those that we are currently investigating, taking action against, and we don't need to wait till October to put in language that adds amendments to what we already have in print to go after the folks that are less complicated?
So that's a really good question. Thank you for that. I will tell you, and not that I'm testifying as an expert witness, but I have spent, and Mr. Maloney knows this, the majority of my life in Golden Gate Estates. This activity is not new. I can assure you of that. And now that we're seeing a vast amount of our population spread to the eastern lands, it is becoming much more apparent, because there's not a lot of area that is many of these streets were dead end, unpaved, and very few homes many years ago. And now we're starting to see these complaints come forward. But you compound that with changes under Florida Statute 162 that says I actually have to have a complainant, and it can't be a board member. It has to be an individual. And Commissioner McDaniel and the county attorneys and I, we went through this recently. So at the end of the day, if we see something that is life safety, and given the topography of the area where you've got a 660-foot deep lot that's a typical Golden Gate Estates lot, whether it's 1.25 acres or 5 acres or 10 acres, there's a lot of areas to hide. We don't fly drones. We can't use aerial photography. We actually have to have a lawful vantage point to where we could provide substantial competent evidence in a court of law or in front of your special magistrate or code enforcement board. So we do this. You've got a limited number of staff compared to the miles of area to cover, as Mr. Maloney indicated. But at the end of the day, they spend an erroneous amount of time in that area working these cases. And whether it's a travel trailer, whether it's multiple families, whether it's illegal construction, illegal activity that is inconsistent with the zoning of the area, yes, sir, we're out there all the time. And in fact, we've even most recently started in one section of the estates, and we're going street by street by street by street, and we're looking for particular things that we could justify in front of that magistrate or code enforcement board to say it's life safety, and that's the reason why we opened the case.
Have we had success, or we've run into, as you said, all these state statutes that work against us, or these unique business owners that know how to skirt the issue? I mean, have we shut anything down? Have we had any progress as we've gone street by street? Because what I would tell the citizens is it's great that everyone's vocal against this one guy that's lawyered up and has dodged some bullets and creatively is using his house, but it would seem like there's some people that probably are more black and white that are already violating what's already in print. Are we having success against some of those people, or we're running into roadblocks with virtually everybody?
We're very measured. Ron Tomasco in Jeff's office is very good representation for us, as well as outside counsel that we use. I would say, based on the population and probably the number of activities, that success might be de minimis in comparison to the amount of violations that could be out there. But yes, sir, and we're hopeful to talk about that in your budget process, where you could actually look back and see the amount of prosecutions and dollars you've collected off of these code actions. And it's been this board that has told us to educate but enforce. And that's really so. our success factor, and you've heard me talk about it before as far as our conviction rates, I'm going to bring you numbers so you could actually see from years past. But it really is. It's an uphill climb because it for so many years it went unnoticed.
All right. All right, we're going to need to move on, but I wanted the board to hear this. Don't run away just yet, because I do have a comment in terms of this. But I wanted the board to hear this, because this is a very serious problem that's only going to get worse. We're in the budget process now. We need to beef up our code enforcement activities. I get more complaints about code issues such as this than anything else. And I wouldn't want to be living next door to a house where they were parking all of these trucks at 5 o'clock in the morning. They're revving up and leaving, creating all kinds of problems. So I want to urge staff to ratchet up the investigation of this. It seems to me that this particular property owner, through some trick of simply changing an address on a license, is skirting the law, but he still has the exact same operation in that same location, so it's still the same business. And I think there's, I seem to remember long ago hearing in terms of legal precedents that you can't really do something indirectly that you're not permitted to do directly. That's what they're doing. They're skirting the law. They know they are, and you are, our staff, you're not taking action to enforce it, and I think you need to do that. I want to encourage the manager and our staff. We need to get a handle on this, because it's just going to get worse. Commissioner McDaniel, if we could.
And I'll be brief. Thank you for recognizing me. Just a couple of things. We are beginning the process of the review of the Golden Gate Area Master Plan Rural, east of 951. But again, these things take time. This circumstance has been happening to our residents for well in excess of a year. And Commissioner LaCastro, I file code complaints all the time. Illegal rentals, repair shops that pop up in somebody's backyard with heavy diesel equipment repair shops and things that are transpiring. And it needs to cease. And Commissioner Saunders, I think you hit the nail on the head. I've said regularly I'm not infected with that mental issue called a law degree, but it's illegal to skirt the law at the same time. So,
all right, let's move on.
I'm down.
The message has been delivered, unless anybody else has anything to add.
Your next two speakers are Susan Zender, and she'll be followed by Mick Moore.
Good morning. My name is Susan Zender. I'm here to provide an update from the Friends of the Vanderbilt Beach Library Committee. We last spoke with you about the library on April 8th. At that time, we expressed concern that the Vanderbilt Beach Library may be considered for closure based on the following facts. The county is looking to cut costs. The Pelican Bay Foundation and the Sheriff's Office both expressed interest in the library property, and the Pelican Bay Foundation had met with the county manager regarding the library property. We understand that there has been no decision to close the library. However, the Sheriff's Office and the Pelican Bay Foundation both had reason to believe that closure of the library may be a possibility, and this prompted our concern. Today, we are here to provide you with feedback from your constituents about the library before your budget workshop next week. Key findings about the Vanderbilt Beach Library. The Vanderbilt Beach Library ranks 5th out of 10 libraries in visitor traffic. The Vanderbilt Beach Library ranks 3rd out of 10 libraries in the summer reading program. The Vanderbilt Beach Library has held an extremely popular book discussion group with a loyal following for over 20 years. The Vanderbilt Beach Library is accessible by neighborhood roads and has excellent accessibility for mobility-challenged patrons. These important attributes are critical to many Vanderbilt Beach Library patrons who told us that they will no longer be able to visit another library if this branch is closed. The Vanderbilt Beach Library is an essential service to those who use the Wi-Fi printers and computers, including students and job seekers who don't have Wi-Fi at home. Over 3,600 of your constituents have signed the petition to keep the library open. The petition was available online and in person. Over 1,900 people signed the online petition, and over 1,700 signed in person. The in-person signatures were collected by over 35 volunteers who stood outside of the library in the heat because this library is important to them. All 3,000 petition signatures are compiled in these binders. This level of community support underscores that the Vanderbilt Beach Library is a valued and vital resource for the Vanderbilt Beach community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your next speaker is Mick Moore, and he'll be followed by Dan Schmidt.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mick Moore. I'm one of the owners of the Vanderbilt Beach Resort and the Turtle Club on Vanderbilt Beach. I'm here today because of the state of Vanderbilt Beach. It's been severely eroded, particularly the area in front of the resort and restaurant. The water is almost up to the seawall at high tide. We're in dire need of a beach renourishment, and I know from talking with staff that there's a full renourishment planned for November, but we may need a temporary renourishment to even get to November. The erosion is simply the worst that I've seen in the last 25 years. Now, the history of beach renourishment is that beach renourishment started in Collier County, I believe, in the late 80s or the early 90s. And before this time, I remember that the water was up to the seawall, and you could not walk the entire stretch of Vanderbilt Beach at times because of the high water and the lack of beach. Now, we all know, and I'm happy to see the exhibit in the back, which is very timely, that the beach is a major driver of both tourism, which brings tourist tax dollars into the state, and a driver and a reason why people move here. And it's no coincidence that after the county started beach renourishment, both tourism took off and the population exploded. So beach renourishment has been done every 5 years since that time. But I'm here to tell you that I think we need to do more frequent renourishment. The cycle might need to be reduced to 4 years. That would allow for a wider beach, and a wider beach helps with several things. First, a wider beach improves beach access for the public. We no longer have the ability to find properties on the beach for the public, but we can make the beach as wide as possible so that people are not crammed in, oftentimes in very crowded conditions. It also provides storm protection, perhaps some of the best storm protection we can have for the coast. And finally, it allows us to be competitive with those other areas that are competing for our tourists, Sanibel Island, Sarasota, and others. And right now, when people come to the beach and see how narrow the beach is, they don't want to come back. They want to go to those other areas. So our property, like it or not, even as we expand east as a county, has always been linked and tied to the beach. The beach still matters. So I'm here as kind of a canary in the coal mine. I'm here because I'm at the beach every day, managing a business on the beach. I see it all the time, and I'm telling you that we need to pay attention to the beach. So I'd like you to do 3 things. First, consider a temporary emergency renourishment for the portions of Vanderbilt Beach that need it, and I know Pelican Bay has a similar issue. Second, follow through with the full beach renourishment in November or December. And finally, ask staff to consider reducing the cycle from every 5 years to every 4 years, which I think because of sea level rise and increased storms makes complete sense. So thank you.
Thank you.
Your next speaker is Dan Schmidt, and he will be followed by Christine Robbins. I think this is Andrews. I hope I'm getting that right.
Hi, I'm Dan Schmidt. I'm a healthcare innovator with 35 years of experience, and I founded a company that was the largest producer of healthcare claims in the United States, processing millions in claims per month. This business led me to investigating a systemic corruption in the healthcare system, and what I found and now built solutions around is this, that the healing that we so desperately need for veterans, for people suffering from substance abuse disorders, from mental health conditions, and from chronic illness, all share the same mechanisms of causation. And the solution is not going to be found in insurance-billed services. Each day in this country, 17 to 22 veterans die by suicide due to unresolved trauma. 132 individuals die every day by suicide linked to mental health conditions. 295 people die from overdoses fueled by substance use disorders. And a whopping 4,600 people a day die from chronic preventable diseases. For the past 15 months, I've asked Collier County to do a simple thing, and that is to follow federal law. Federal law requires that when a person with disability requests a reasonable accommodation, the government must pause enforcement and engage in an interactive process. That process is a legal obligation to simply have a two-way dialogue. To be explicitly clear, the lack of an interactive process is the problem, as a two-way dialogue must occur first before a reasonable accommodation can be decided. But Collier County's not only failed to comply, the attorneys admitted on record they don't know how to exactly comply. In a similar situation, Wounded Warrior's case here in Naples ended in federal court due to the same failure to have an interactive dialogue, AKA a discussion. And the case ended with an accommodation of 7 unrelated residents in an area that was zoned for only 4. Naples paid a $70,000 settlement, reinforcing precedent that when zoning laws conflict with federal protections, federal law prevails. So I want to be clear, and I don't even support the outcome of that case. Cramming 7 people into a tiny house in a dense neighborhood is not a very good healing solution. The model I'm proposing is wildly different, substantially lessening undue burden, arguments in comparison to that Wounded Warrior case, but without having an interactive dialogue, Collier County ensures that bad programs will exist and innovations are blocked. I've created a memorandum of law which describes the obligations of this interactive process, AKA, again, having a discussion, as well as a confidential accommodation recommendation as if we already had the two-way dialogue that would jointly create a win-win. And so I urge you to engage in good faith and not simply defer to judgment to county attorneys who have already failed in this process multiple times. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Christine Robbins Andrews, and she will be followed on Zoom by Marcia Owenick.
And let me make one comment before we go to the next to Christine there. I had met with Mr. Schmidt. I think the county attorney needs to advise the board, maybe at our next meeting, but what obligations, if any, we do have to accommodate the issue raised by Dan Schmidt, and also to meet with Dan Schmidt to make sure that we're not in violation of federal law.
Well, I can give you my answer now, but I'm happy to come back with a more formal process at the next meeting.
I think that probably would be best, because this is catching everybody by surprise.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Am I supposed to push this?
No, I'll take care of it.
Okay. Good morning. Can you hear me well? Whoops.
Oh, that's okay. We'll take care of that.
My name's Christine Robbins Andrews. I live at 13 Butterfield Trail, Naples 34113. I've visited Naples since 1976 when my father moved here, permanent resident for 25 years. 2 years ago, my husband and I already owned property in our community, which is an HOA, mobile home park retirement community. And we bought another piece of property at 17 Oregon, which we found out afterwards there was a real feral cat problem around our home. They were defecating everywhere under our place, ruining the golf cart, the cushions. It can't leave anything outside. Multiple complaints by other neighbors as well. I tried to resolve this in a neighborly fashion to the lady next door that kept feeding him, and the lady across the street. The lady across the street ceased, but the lady next door did not. After a letter to the board, I believe there was a letter sent, but for 2 years she's continued to do this. So this May, myself and other neighbors sent a letter to the association board members requesting that they resolve this. And one of the members brings back the brochure, which was generated by the community, Collier County Community Cats. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but DAS tells me that this was written up by them, but that the Collier County Commissioners approved it and implemented it. And this says that feral cats, once they are trapped and taken, they are neutered or spayed, and then they are then returned and considered a community cat. And so then the community is responsible, and anybody in the community can feed them, water them, do whatever they want, apparently. Well, this is impacting on us. And the state statutes also point out that the statutes concerning cats focus on public health, safety, and animal welfare. Well, that's us, partly us, including our pets, like our dogs, which have to be controlled. And this was to control the feral cats. But what's happening is quite a disturbance on this part of our side of the HMO. And apparently my husband and I are under the impression, well, if they're causing these damages such as and disease problems, because supposed to be vaccinated, but who has proof of that? Anyway, the cats are defecating. Who's going to clean up under our place? Or do we have to spend more money to enclose it? Damage to our golf carts, our outdoor furniture. We've had renters the past 2 years who don't want to return because of the cats, because every time they cook outside, they can't. The cats are all over the place. So the county, I'm asking you, when there was a dog problem there, DAS said that's the HMO's problem. Now, you're saying that DAS supersedes the HMO rights. So we're losing income, and we have a real problem here. And I've tried to resolve it neighborly. I tried to resolve it through the board. So I'm hoping that the commissioners can tell me, what do I do? Who do we go to for damages? Why do cats have more rights than a property owner? Why does my next door neighbor have more rights than we do?
Christine, we need you to wrap up.
Well, that's pretty much sums it up. I hope you can help me in this dilemma, because it's an income problem and a disease problem.
Thank you.
So,
Mr. Chair, your final registered speaker under item 7 is joining us on Zoom, Marcia Owenick. Marcia, you should be getting prompted to unmute yourself if you'll do so at this time. I see that you have. Marcia, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Marcia Owenick. I'm a member of the Vanderbilt Beach Library Committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you this morning. Quoting from the county's Strategic Plan 2025, the county's vision is to be the best community in America to live, work, and play. The county's mission is to deliver high quality and best value public services, programs, and facilities to meet the needs of our residents, visitors, and businesses today and tomorrow. What does the Collier County Library System provide for this? Most of us are familiar with these services: access to informational, recreational materials, books, DVDs, CDs, videos, magazines, and newspapers, access to reference materials, informational databases and their content, access to IRS forms, access to knowledgeable people who can guide research, and programs to promote and support reading by children and adults, but also access to Wi-Fi, computers through which the internet can be accessed, printing, copying, and scanning facilities. These services are especially critical for people who can't afford to provide these services in their home or don't have the knowledge to manage their installation and maintenance. They are critical for those who are seeking jobs and/or a place to live. Collier County Library System has 10 facilities strategically located to ensure that all of the large and growing Collier County population has access to these services. This means Collier County Library Services provides critical, vital services to Collier County residents in support of Collier County's mission. To lower the library's reliance on county funding, our committee studied the list of funding strategies proposed by ResourceX as a starting point. One member of our team has identified over a dozen funding strategies that could be implemented to support the Collier County Library System in general, and some specific to the Vanderbilt Beach Library, including sponsorships and public-private partnerships. One of these, if approved, could generate revenue beginning by September 1st. This list has been shared with the Library Advisory Board and the Library Administration to add to the list of funding strategies they have identified. You understand that the introduction of new processes requires time for implementation in accordance with the county's policies and procedures. I hope that your strategic objective, quote, to encourage active community engagement and participation, unquote, will support these efforts, including enabling the public to use online payment processes to donate to county libraries versus requiring paper checks. I implore you to recognize the Collier County Library System as a vital public service that requires your support in order to fulfill the county's mission and achieve its vision. This means funding that enables continued service to all members of the county. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, that was our final registered speaker.
Just for scheduling purposes, we have a time certain at 10:30. We're going to take a court reporter break just before we get to that item. It may be 10:30 when we take the break, because we don't want to take a break in the middle of it. So
Yes,
if you can
sir.
get us to 10:30.
Yes, sir. That brings us to item 8A. This is an appeal by the Board of County Commissioners of Hearing Examiner Decision 2025-02, which denied an insubstantial change to ordinance number 18-49, the seed to table commercial planned unit development, to remove the gate control system at the Piper Boulevard access to the parking lot. The subject PUD is 6.82 acres located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Immokalee Road and Livingston Road in Section 24, Township 48 South, Range 25 East, Collier County, Florida. Mr. Mike Bosey, your Planning and Zoning Director, is here to present.
Now, we heard this in some detail recently, I believe, so I don't know if there are any questions. We understand that there's a requirement in the documents that need to be corrected, and also a fine, but everybody's agreed to everything. So I don't know if we need a presentation on this or not. I'll see if the board is in need of any information on this. Then if you can tell us how to proceed to get to that end point.
Well, I had a recommendation, but the slide doesn't seem to want to advance.
Okay.
It's the last slide.
Commissioner McAndrew, do you want to make a comment now, or do you want to wait until?
I'll wait, sir. Thank you.
Keep going. Okay. So what this is the hearing examiner had heard the item earlier this year in January regarding the proposed removal of the gate for the employee parking for seed to table. In his decision, the hearing examiner determined that it was a substantial change and not a insubstantial change and not qualifying as a PDI. What we're asking the Board of County Commissioners is to reverse that decision, to find that it is an insubstantial change, and to authorize the removal of the gate. One of the things that was also included as conditions of approval were commitments that the applicant had made at the required neighborhood information meeting. That was to add speed bumps or slash tables to that parking area to prevent or discourage cut-throughs. Also, post authorized personnel only signs, specifically at the gate entrance, to say that it's only for FP&L, the CAT system, or public utilities to access, and request police presence as necessary. So those three conditions were offered by the applicant's representative at the neighborhood information meeting. We want to impose those as an alternative to the gate because of the number of times that the gate has been taken down and had interference with. Because of that, staff is recommending that the Board of County Commissioners find that it does qualify for an insubstantial change and that these three additional conditions of approval be placed within the PUD.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yeah, do we have any public speakers, Troy? Yes. Okay, well, I'll hold my comments until that, sir.
All right. Any other questions before we go to public comment? Commissioner Colwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Bose, can you just clarify, who's taking the gate down?
From the documentation that's it's been cited that either CAT system and FP&L have indicated that neighbors or individuals within the neighborhood not associated with seed to table it has interfered with the gate at times. Now, there's no corroboration, there's no documented evidence of that other than hearsay, but that's what that's the information that was provided for within the application package.
Was it a hindrance for an FP&L for their right-of-way to get in there and do work? Is that?
Well, part of the problem is, and if FP&L needs to get in there, they will get through whether they have to break down the gate or not break down the gate, because that is their easement that the parking lot is upon, and it's clear that if they need to access that area, they will access the area even if they have to take the gate down by force.
Thank
you. Jamie, did you have an additional comment? 'Cause my understanding was that FP&L had removed the gate a couple times.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, for the record, Jamie French. Commissioner, you and I spoke about this yesterday, Commissioner Kowal, and I did speak with he's Eric Short, who was code enforcement officer, the supervisor at the time. He still works for the county in the capacity of a superintendent over parks, but Eric was the case officer on that and witnessed FP&L actually removed they were down arms. So what happened is that the contractor had switched to a cattle gate with an FP&L lock on it. That then became a hindrance for county staff, meaning CAT. I don't know about public utilities, but then you've no longer got an automatic swing arm. It's a manual gate, so that would require perhaps the CAT buses to back up. I don't know what's involved with that. Ms. Scott and I have spoken about that as well yesterday, but I did run that down, and they did try to make provisions for FP&L so that they would stop removing the arms, but then that created another problem for other authorized users that were identified within the PUD and the lease agreement.
All right, let's go to the public comment.
We have one public comment. Michelle, is this, is it Bammel? Okay.
Thank you. I'm a Willoughby Acres homeowner since 2018, and I'm a full-time resident. And I think in the presentation of the county asking to have the gate removed, the vision has been limited to just pictures of the parking lot. So I'm providing a map that will show you the actual points of impact and future impact based on projects that are currently in place before the county. Items 1 and 2 in the lower right-hand corner are the entrance points to the parking lot. These entrances did not exist until the county actually allowed that seat-to-table employee parking lot to be built. What this has done is created a cut-through to 2 very busy streets from Livingston to Immokalee Road. Piper Boulevard moving to point 1 was previously a dead end with a small parking lot for FPL employees. So we very rarely ever saw traffic going down to that point until the gate was removed from the parking lot. Now on a daily basis, we'll see multiple instances of cars cutting through the neighborhood, going to and coming from the parking lot. The primary intersection, once you come down Piper Boulevard to Lakeland Avenue, is point 4. That is a stop sign on both sides of Piper Boulevard. There's straight through traffic from Lakeland Avenue to point 3, which is the Immokalee Road light, which is the primary entrance and exit to Willoughby Acres. At this time, we are seeing traffic backing up at the Piper Boulevard stop signs and at Lakeland approaching point 3, the stop light. Cars are actually driving around the stop traffic in the opposite road to get by to reach the seat-to-table parking lot. There have been multiple accidents at point 4 due to this issue. I will point out that in a 2 to 3 week period of time, we saw 3 accidents. One of them was a fatality. At point 5 in Lakeland Avenue, that's where the young teen boy was hit on his e-bike. Within another 2 weeks, we had another accident at point 4. And on Euclid Avenue, point 6, we had another accident. That's what was within a 2 to 3 week period of time. These crossroads in Willoughby Acres are very narrow. They're not a center side road. It's very difficult for 2 vehicles to pass each other, and that's just standard size cars. There are very few sidewalks on these roads. That means the children are out playing on their bikes and scooters in the road. So they're now contesting with a significant increase in traffic cutting through to get point to point. Item 8 and 9 are proposed expansions for new housing. 8 is going to be the expansion to the inn. Point 9 is going to be the Arthrex housing, so that's going to contribute additional traffic to Piper Boulevard. And at this time, there's no consolidated traffic impact study that actually evaluates what's happening on Piper Boulevard and what's happened with the gate being removed from the Lakeland Avenue Piper Boulevard intersection. So I ask that for safety purposes that you put that gate back in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other speakers?
That was our only speaker on that item, sir. I'm sorry.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Well, and my question is for staff. Who owns the gate?
I believe the gate is owned by Seed to Table.
So it was put in as a condition of their lease for the land that we own underneath or on the easement, the FPL easement?
Correct.
Okay. And from what I understand, when we were speaking about this, we had multiple hearings on this throughout time. It's been problematic for FPL, who utilizes that access to get to their facilities. There's a substation or something over there?
Correct.
Okay. And did I hear someone say also that FPL actually had to manipulate the gate to be able to get through?
Well, yeah, I believe Mr. French made the assertion that they had to manually remove the gate at one point in time to gain access.
Okay. No further questions, sir.
Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. It's the PUD. This was a novel thought to keep traffic down in the beginning. It's county property. The gate's owned by Seed to Table, and it's in the FPL easement. Mr. Oakes is getting the code violations based on things that are his fault. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to remove the gate.
Second.
If you can make a motion to adopt staff's recommendation, because there are numerous conditions to it.
I'll amend it, my motion to take the gate down, put the speed bumps in and the signs in, and if the police want to show up, they can.
And I'll amend the second to accept that.
Before we, I do have a question and perhaps a comment on the motion. It seems to me that there should be a way to resolve a gate operation so that the parties of interest will have a gate that operates. I'm not sure I understand why we can't do that. I do agree with the speaker in terms of the speed bumps. The speed bumps aren't going to deter anybody. That anybody wants to cut through, they're going to go through with the speed bump. That's of zero, in my view, zero protection. The police, they're not going to come to a speed bump. I mean, what would be the violation? There is none. So I'm wondering if we could defer the vote on this, because I think it does. I'm compelled by the testimony this morning from the public that this is a problem that is going to get worse, and I don't understand why we can't fix it. So that there is a gate. Obviously, the Seed to Table has no objection to a gate being there, so that's not a problem. So why can't we fix that without taking the gate down and creating what may very well be a very serious traffic problem in a whole area? So I'll suggest that we do that we defer this. The gate's down right now, I understand.
That is my understanding, yes.
So no one other than the neighborhood is getting prejudiced in any way if we defer this, but there's got to be a way to fix that. This is not, as some people would say, this is not rocket science. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you. Well, the gate, the truth is the gate stays down most of the time. And gates don't cause accidents. People running stop signs, people not obeying traffic laws do cause accidents. So I understand the rationale that whatever traffic comes on Piper is there's people that don't obey the traffic laws and they get in accidents, but it's not the gate's fault. I don't think, I've been up there during rush hour just to see when this first came up. And the parking lot is designed for Seed to Table employees only. And I didn't see very much traffic coming through, not to cause alarm, and certainly not to continue to let the Land Development Code violations add up on Mr. Oakes when he's not the one taking the thing down, and he can't be a gate babysitter just to keep that done. So if you want to defer the vote, we can do it, but my motion still stands.
Commissioner Caldwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, kind of 2 points, and I kind of agree with Commissioner Hall a little bit because I travel that area a lot. I have an interest back on Johnny Cake, which is within the community there, and I'm back there occasionally. And I see no benefit of using that because it would only benefit somebody running southbound on Livingston Road to use it as a cut-through. It wouldn't benefit anybody going north or east or west. And I don't know why you would want to cut through there and have to sit at 2 longer lights just to get on Immokalee Road on a shorter queuing area than just remain in the traffic that's already there existing southbound. And secondly, and it's very easy, there is a state statute called failure to obey a traffic control device, which signs fall under that, as long as they're legally placed within the ordinance. And sheriffs could post a car there if they see cars cutting through, and the minute they go through there where the sign says this is authorized people only, they could get a ticket. It used to be a $163 fine. I don't know what it is today, but that's an easy fix to post somebody there every once in a while, just to, if you see an uptick. So just, that's my.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, and do we have any information with how long the gate has been up and how long the gate has been down? I mean, from my understanding, the gate's down more than it's been up since it was installed and fixed and code enforcement installed and fixed again.
I don't have like a chronology of when the gate has been open, when the gate has been down, but that's anecdotally the information that we've received from staff is the gate is down more than it's up, and that's the issue. And every time it's a code enforcement issue associated with the property owner, and the suggestions that they've proposed, staff felt was adequate based upon the fact that the Piper Boulevard and those roads that are to the west, those are public roads.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at an aerial photo, and one of the things I wouldn't mind, if you want to defer the vote, we can defer the vote, but my second still stands. I don't mind. What I would like to do is maybe work with the neighborhood of Willoughby Acres, have a discussion about, because I've been there, I've sold homes there, I've got friends that live there, the poor young man that lost his life. I concur with my colleagues that people disobey safety issues. People are farther larger offenders with regard to the safety side of things. I concur with Commissioner Saunders. The speed bumps aren't really gonna do anything other than beat up my truck when I come through there. But on the same token,
Cutting through there.
Why are you cutting through there?
Why are you cutting?
I wasn't cutting through. I was driving it just to familiarize myself with the area, sir. But the bottom line, my comment that I wanted to make was sidewalks. All of the streets in Willoughby Acres are very, very narrow, and sidewalks could be a huge improvement. And maybe we could do a study with regard to the cost, an individual MSTU to facilitate the financing for those things, to enhance the shoulder width and the sidewalk safety progress along there. My other question that I did have for you, Mr. Bosey, is it looks like there's a road that travels all the way from Entrada Avenue, a subdivision considerably further to the north that travels through that, along that FPL easement. Is that an access road, or is that just the access road for FPL to do their maintenance along there? Do people get to travel on that? I think it's a dirt road.
I'm not familiar with that, with the official status of that road, whether it is a dedicated county road or whether it's a private easement.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. As I said, if we defer this for a couple of weeks to see if there is a better solution or a solution, we're not continuing to find seed to table. They've arrived at a settlement in terms of a fine. That number is set so that there's no harm, no foul. If this is delayed, there may be an opportunity to correct this. I'll call for the vote on the motion. I'm going to vote against the motion if it proceeds today, because I think there may be an opportunity to take a further look at this. But we have a motion second. If there's no desire to continue it, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. And again, for the record, my opposition is simply that we got a problem there, and I wanted to see if there was a way to accommodate the neighborhood. Again, no harm, no foul if we had delayed this. All right. Ms. Patterson.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, that brings us to item 9A. 9A is a recommendation to adopt an ordinance amending the Collier County Land Development Code to implement housing initiatives in the growth management plan related to housing that is affordable. Mr. Mike Bosey is here again to present, and this is the first of two hearings.
Good morning again. Mike Bosey, Planning and Zoning Director. And this is the culmination of the ULI effort that started back in 2017 when the county had declared that we had an affordable housing emergency. There were a number of different initiatives that were suggested. The majority of them were taken by the previous boards and incorporated within the GMP as well as the Land Development Code. There was 3 initiatives that were remaining that the board directed us to move forward with from a growth management plan standpoint, and this is the implementation from the LDC standpoint. The 3 remaining were to allow for commercial to residential conversion via the hearing examiner, develop guidelines to incentivize mixed income residential housing, and provide an increase in density to the community redevelopment agencies and along transit corridors. So within this LDC amendment, Initiative 2, 3, and 5 are the ones that we're moving. Expanding the allowance for commercial districts developed with a residential or a mixed-use development by right when they provide for affordable housing. Initiative 3 is increasing density within activity centers from 16 units per acre, which is the current limitation, to 25 units per acre. And as a side note, the board has routinely approved the 25 units per acre within activity centers based upon the GMP amendment having already been adopted. And Initiative 5, increased density opportunities along bus transit lines in connection to TOD or transit-oriented development. LDC sections, I won't read them all, but there are numerous that are being amended within here to make sure we are as comprehensive as possible. And the most significant you're going to see is the change to the chart. And one of the most, you see there's 2 reddish arrows. And before we used to have a moderate AMI level, and that was 80 to 120%. Based upon a number of the GMP amendments that we had to advance affordable housing, we were targeting the 80 and the 100%. So we created a new category. We split that in half. So we have 120 to 100, which is moderate, and then medium is 80 to 100. And we think that has a benefit. But we also updated the LDC chart to allow for the 12 units an acre bonus that's now allowed and is authorized by the GMP amendments that were approved by the board. The mixed income housing program criteria, I'll just read a couple of these real quick. It's to incentivize developments that provide for a mix of housing affordability. The affordable units must be intermixed and not segregated from the market units like we have for most PUD. The ratio of bedrooms per affordable have to be the same as the market rate units. And that commitment for 30 years is now being memorialized within our LDC. We were following that as part of the GMP amendments, but this is codifying and for rentals, income verification has to be submitted annually. That is a traditional activity that we have. Housing that is affordable in the C1 through C5 zoning district, it allows up to 16 units an acre. We propose new development standards. All units must be housing that is affordable in concert with the following percentages. It's a mix to make sure that we have a range of affordable units within these individual commercial properties that are seeking to move to residential if they provide for affordable or housing that is affordable. And then finally, housing that's affordable in the mixed-use activity centers, in the interchange activity centers. Those are our major intersections with the our collector and our collector roads, but also within the I-75 interchanges as well. Allowing for 25 units an acre, a mix, same regulation, same income verification, and we're proposing some new development standards that would be required.
Commissioner Hall, do you have a question now, or do you?
I'll wait till
Okay.
And finally, the transit-oriented development. If you are on a dedicated CAT bus system route and you provide for a CAT bus system, you can get up to 25 units an acre by this proposal. You have to have 50% of your units within a quarter mile of that bus stop that you would be developing, simply because the thinking behind that is, with that quarter mile, you're going to have you're going to have condensed 50% of your units within a distance that staff in the literature says a quarter mile is not a an unreasonable burden for individuals to access the public transit. And the specifics of it, the specifics of it relate to when we have those dedicated CAT bus systems, and it has that specific requirement for them to develop the transit stops. And the recommendation that came from your planning commission by 6-1 was approval of the LDC amendments, and staff is recommending approval to the Board of County Commissioners.
And this is the first of two?
Yes, this is the first of two, and if it's a unanimous vote, the second one would be put on your summary agenda because you've already heard the item.
Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. I remember working on these initiatives quite a bit when I first went to the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. And at that time, we were talking about C1 through C3. My concerns are to include C4 and 5 because we have very limited industrial space in Collier County, and my preference is I would like to protect that. So I would be fine with these things as for discussion without the by right in C4 and C5.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yeah, it's not going to be a unanimous vote today. Did I understand you to say that this initiative's been worked on since 17 when the ULI report came out?
Correct.
Okay. So here we are 8 years later dealing with the subject matter that has been prevalent within our community. Before I can support this, I need new data. I mean, Commissioner LaCastro, when you first came on the board, you served on the AHAC, or the Affordable Housing Committee, forgive me, and you brought forward an enormous amount of data with here are the units that are affordable, here are those that are not, here are they at market, here are the developers that aren't playing by the rules, so on and so forth. I need to see that first of all. I need to see what the current market circumstances are, because what I am actually seeing right now, 8 years later, after it was deemed to be a kind of crisis, I'm seeing rental signs everywhere. I'm seeing people out waving signs pointing people to these rental developments, both at market and affordable, number one. Number two, I asked 8 years ago for a modified conditional use process. That has never transpired. And I think we, as a board, in my 8-year tenure, have been honoring the need for the community, providing for housing that's in fact affordable on an as-needed basis when it's picked by the board to be in certain areas, similar to what you're looking to do here by right. And that's my concern, as I share with Commissioner Hall. These increased by right densities have an impact on my infrastructure in the urban area all the way across the board. I agree with you 100% in the relocation of populations into the urban areas, so we have capacities to move them around. Public transit's a nice thing, and we reduce the burden on our entire infrastructure when we have our residents living closer to the services that are requisite. But I shared Commissioner Hall's concern with regard to the by right. No, it has to be on a case-by-case basis. When it's proven there's a need, when it's proven that it's compatible, when it's proven that it fits into the entire scheme of what we're looking to do as a board.
Commissioner Colwell.
Thank you, Chairman. I have two questions. I guess Mr. Cormack's more familiar because now I'm on the Affordable Housing Committee myself now. And I know we've noticed a trend that we're moving now. There's going to be, I think, at least two things before the board here in the future that's more on the lines of affordable ownership. Now, I don't know how this addresses or how these changes affect that type of concept where we're getting developers willing to have 20, 30% of the homes to actually own as affordable set at certain rates for people to afford. So that's one thing. I don't know, you could probably more detail what.
Sure. For the record, Cormac Giblin, your Director of Housing Policy and Economic Development. The two that you're mentioning are coming forward. I think they're more of a function of the location of those specific properties and the underlying densities that they would be allowed to get. They're not what I would say in the urban core. And so they are more on the fringes where they are eligible for a lesser density. And so they're looking at an owner-occupied property to make up some of that difference.
But I guess your position, my position is I like those type of things I want to hear case by case. I think everything has a special circumstance attached to it, so.
Sure. One thing in this amendment, the only part of this that is the by right is the commercial conversion. The other two initiatives that Mr. Bosey went through still require public hearing process. So the commercial conversion that is proposed in this amendment, really, the state has already trumped us on that with the live local, which would in fact get a developer 25 units to the acre and not the 16 that this would get them. So again, the state kind of beat us to the punch on that. As mentioned, these have been in the works for a long time. I think that these were the germination of the live local law that went into effect statewide. And now it's kind of, we're catching up with both the legislature and with all the private GMP amendments that have been going through since the time these were first discussed.
I know I have a little understanding this is probably the third change they've done and they've passed it this year, and it definitely addressed the public transit part of it where they define it differently than what it originally was.
Certainly.
So I think it's going to handcuff us too as we move forward.
And Mike Bosey, again, just to add to that, the state, they opened up PUDs. PUDs are eligible for live local as well. So that was another aspect of the change. When it becomes law, any portion of a PUD that's designated mixed use, industrial or commercial is eligible for the 25 units an acre that we say that our growth management plan would allow in terms of density within our activity centers.
Mr. LaCastro.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief. I don't think you have the 4 votes. You don't have mine, not because I don't agree with this, but I think, as I've said up here before about other things, I'd like to see a deeper dive, a more cohesive presentation, and not because we don't understand it, but every time we vote on something, the public needs to understand what we just approved, and I think it would be more valuable if something more cohesive, inclusive, and detailed was put together to explain exactly what we're doing here, what our options might be, and, this is one where I think delaying it isn't because we can't make a decision, but I just think for something this important and some of the changes that we're making, we'd benefit more, especially when you need 4 votes as well. Like I said, it's not that I disagree with this, but I think for an all-encompassing presentation would be much more valuable before we vote on it.
I'm going to suggest that we continue this. One of the commissioners needs more data, and you understand what that is. Another commissioner is looking for more presentation detail, and I think that would require a staff meeting with each one of us again to go through this in a lot of detail. So I'm going to suggest that we continue this, not for 2 weeks because I don't think that's going to give everybody enough time, but continue this until well, we don't have a second meeting in July. So we do have the first meeting in July, but there doesn't appear to be any major urgency. Is that correct? I mean, it's been 8 years since we started.
And I will say, staff hasn't been sending those for 8 years. These were the last of the initiatives that were identified.
That was kind of a joke. Yes. I understand. It was. So why don't we continue this to our first meeting in August?
That'd be okay.
And then staff's got some marching orders in terms of meeting with each one of us and going through this in some detail and generating the data. Commissioner Kowal.
Chairman, I would just like, what I really want to see, and I want to make it clear because I think we owe it to the constituents too, what we bring forth, what are we bringing forth because we're statutorily driven versus a good idea? Because I think that needs to be clear because sometimes we can't trump the state. And if there's things in these, because by July 1, we're going to know exactly the language that's in this new live local, and that's going to determine what direction we go with this, or what we can or can't do with it. So I just want to make sure we we do what we can do that benefits the citizens of Collier County, not just walk lock and step. If there's things we can do outside of what the state's saying. That
Mr. McDaniel?
I'll be brief. I'll be brief. And I was kind of making a joke on the 8-year thing. Did I hear you say that there's a statute coming through to overcome the PUD requisite that we have in place?
Yes, correct.
Does our PUD requisite protect us from that statute?
I don't believe so.
Because it can, that's another one we'll have to have a look at with our county attorney. And then the last thing, on a happy note, I did like the adjustments in the AMI process. Because when we started this, Commissioner Saunders, 8 years ago, our AMI in Collier County was under 100,000. Now it's projected to be up to 115. So those are needed maneuvers.
Mr. Hall?
Real brief, I'd like to know what the difference is in what we're proposing with these initiatives versus we're going to be trumped by Live Local. What the difference is.
All right. I'll make a motion to continue this to the first meeting in August. What is the date of that first meeting, if anybody, so we have a date certain?
I'll second it. You want to second it?
Yes.
Go ahead.
August 12th.
Okay, so the motion is to continue this until August 12th. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed. That we'll see you in August, and that's August of this year. All right, we're gonna take a break, maybe a little bit longer than we normally do. We're gonna break until 11:15. That'll give us. I'm sorry. Yeah, this was set for 10:30, but we're gonna break until 11:15 to get our court reporter a break and
10:45.
Chair, you have a live mic.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Patterson. If you can get us started on the David Lawrence Center item.
Yes, sir. This brings us to item 11A, our 1030 time certain. This is a recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners review and consider for approval and execution, 1, a Fourth Amendment to vacant land contract with David Lawrence Mental Health Center, Inc. to modify the Collier County Standard Form long-term lease and include an operating agreement exhibit governing behavioral health center operations, and 2, an amendment to the naming rights agreement to clarify use of funds acquired with naming rights. Ms. Christy Sontag, your Director of Community and Human Services, is here to begin the presentation. I should also mention this item was continued from the May 27th, 2025 BCC meeting. Christy.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Christy Sontag, Community and Human Services Director. For the record, as the County Manager stated, this item is continued from the May 27th board meeting. The item before you has been presented to the board several times over the last 4 years to address the lease agreement, the construction and design contract, naming rights, and currently we're proposing the operating agreement. Today's objective is to address and approve the amendments to the lease agreement, including the addition of the operating agreement, an amendment to the naming rights agreement to clarify the use of funds. Since the workshop, there were some questions regarding audit provisions and the ability to audit this particular facility. So I just wanted to clarify for you that the operating agreement, in fact, does address the ability for the county to audit. And in fact, the operating agreement gives the county the authority to audit all records, documents, and books. The David Lawrence Center must maintain accounting, operating, and administrative controls. The operating agreement does require the David Lawrence Center to submit a draft and final financial pro forma annually for the county's review of the central receiving facility. The naming rights agreement does allow for the clerk of courts to audit those funds, and they must be in a segregated account. And also, your current state mandated MOU does include the ability for the county to audit all records center-wide across David Lawrence Center, so outside of the central receiving facility. There have been several updates to the operating agreement since we last met and talked about this. These have been agreed to by the David Lawrence Center. The David Lawrence Center, so in Section 3 scope of service, the David Lawrence Center shall operate an 87-bed central receiving facility. This shall not result in or be the basis for any reduction in the number of permanent beds that are currently operated by the David Lawrence Center at its existing facility. David Lawrence Center shall maintain a minimum current number of permanently licensed crisis beds upon the opening of the central receiving facility. Number 7, collaboration has been modified, where David Lawrence Center can present evidence-based alternatives to standards every 3 years for the operation of the number of beds at Bathy Lane. So essentially, that's if the David Lawrence Center was to open a new facility somewhere. And let's say they wanted to reduce the number of beds at Bathy Lane because of another new facility, they would need to come to the board and request permission to do so. And lastly, they must report the number of permanently licensed beds on an annual basis to the county. So, the fiscal impact associated with this item. As you're aware, there is a 25% local match requirement for mental health and substance abuse services as stated in Florida statute. In fiscal year 25, you committed $1.7 million of general fund dollars, of which 303 was a one-time non-recurring request, so your base funding was $1.4 million. These funds are used to augment the LIP program. As you know, that's your federal program that gives you an adjusted return back to David Lawrence Center and capitalizes on those dollars. There is a $522,000 opioid settlement agreement that the David Lawrence Center has. The base funding for 25 included $812,800 of state and local fiscal recovery. Those funds are exhausted, and that ended in March of 25, and those will not be replenished in upcoming years. As a reminder, per the operating agreement, the county is responsible for the capital replacement, and we've set aside $460,000 per year for that. So, talking about shortfalls. Again, Collier County is not responsible for any additional funding beyond the state required local match obligation. If sources of revenue for the operation of the CRF from the federal government, state government, or Collier County are reduced, David Lawrence Center may submit a request to you for deficit operational funding only after they have tried to seek other revenue sources through municipalities, philanthropic donations. The board may approve the request, deny the request, or adjust the level of service. If the board denies the funding and declines to adjust the level of service, this would be your grounds for termination if you so chose. So with that, I'll bring up Mr. Burgess, or if you have any questions for me.
Okay. Any questions for staff? All right.
All right. Oh, no. Troy, I don't know. He's going to load it for you.
Great. Thank you. While that's being loaded, I appreciate it. For the record, Scott Burgess, CEO of David Lawrence Centers for Behavioral Health. Thank you for allowing us to be here again to review this item with you. I do have some high-level remarks to make that are just reviewing salient points that have come up in our conversation, addressing comments that have been expressed, and to provide additional clarity on recent questions. So what has been expressed is very clear in this process, as these are significant and growing needs in our community. I appreciate the fact that we just had last week the mental health workshop that you all participated in. Thank you for that opportunity to be before you with our 30 collaborating organizations and community leaders who are engaged in the process of offering up recommendations on mental health and substance use challenges in our community, trying to put forward solutions and recommendations and also execute on those. Appreciate your opportunity to do that. What has remained clear also in that process and was expressed last week by that entire group, the Collier County Coalition for Healthy Minds, is that this remains, the central receiving facility remains the #1 priority of the strategic plan that has now been in existence for 5 years and now going into our next 5-year plan. I come to you today as with DLC having been a 56-year trusted provider with a proven track record in our community, providing impactful and effective care. Not only that, but also available to all in our community. And as we've gone through before, there are many that have struggles with income, with no insurance, and that are underinsured. DLC has a successful track record of being able to grow its services to meet the growing needs in Collier County, and was cited before that in the last 12 years, Collier County's population has grown 26%, and DLC services have grown 138%. So we have that demonstrated track record of being able to effectively mobilize, execute, and enhance services. DLC's board and our staff were comfortable in taking on the risk of the annual fundraising variance that we've talked about based on our historic success and our growing support. We've had an ability to rally the philanthropic community based on our years of trust in the community and providing these vital services and care. We've demonstrated an ability to leverage diverse funding through grants as well as federal and state and local supports. Our board, our executive team, and our treatment team are fully committed to success in this project, and we are confident that we will have success yet again. To ensure that there's full clarity related to the number of beds, and as you know, that was built into the actual operating agreement, we have committed that we are going to maintain the 33 crisis beds that are on the current Bathy campus, permanent beds. We're going to be adding the 87 new beds in the central receiving facility for 120 total beds between the two sites. The average bed cost, I know that's come up before, to build a psychiatric bed ranges between $680,000 to $1 million. The cost per bed for the central receiving facility is $644,000, which is below the low range for behavioral health in this range. This is partially due because DLC is committed to purchasing the furniture and fixtures, the security equipment, and the medical equipment for this facility. It's already been discussed in the previous presentation by Christy that we have built in the agreement what Commissioner Saunders had presented at the last meeting, and that's in the red information there, which I know you have all seen. It was also discussed in the previous presentation in the collaboration section that there's this 3-year review on the Bathy Lane campus beds as well. From a budget projection standpoint, the numbers have not changed since the last time we were before you. You do see that there is a operational shortfall in the projections on the central receiving facility, going from about $870,000 or $730,000 to $1.4 million across those 5 years. We've also provided in the pro forma the information regarding DLC center-wide budget projections. So you see those numbers as well. So that is inclusive of the central receiving as well. So between both campuses and all of DLC's operations. And you see that on the out year of 32, that goes to about $3.7 million. And then I wanted to, I made a statement before that we have confidence that we'll be able to address that shortfall. And that's based on our historic success that we've had and our growing support. So I wanted to provide you just some information regarding our more recent fundraising in the last few years and the historic average of close to, if you round it, $3.7 million. With that, I'm available to answer any additional questions that you may have.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yeah, two quick questions. The slide you put up with total beds was different than the slide that I saw. I can't remember if it was in the workshop or it was at the last meeting, Mr. Burgess. You talked about the 87 new beds and keeping the 33, but I also saw an expansion of your existing facility, and I didn't see that today. Has that plan changed?
No. What was presented today are the crisis stabilization beds. So it's 120 crisis stabilization beds. We will continue to have other beds that are on the DLC campus that are not Baker Act or Marchman Act related beds.
And you are expanding that to 7, I think I saw 67 or 76 beds?
Correct. Well, the 78 beds is inclusive of the 33.
Right.
So we will have, in addition to the crisis stabilization beds, we project that we're going to have 42 beds that are going to be addition to be available for other substance use disorder services.
And your funding mechanism to support that
is already in place.
It's already in place. Okay. And then the second question that I had was during the workshop you represented that there were limitations if we came away from this location, as was recommended by the consultant, that there were limitations on funding sources based upon proximity to the jail, I think is what I heard. Is that correct?
That is. It's my recollection that we had an individual from Central Florida Behavioral Health, that is the managing entity, that had, I believe it was Linda McKinnon, who was the CEO at the time, that had spoke to the group in relationship to the fact that to put such a facility next to the jail would be contrary to the movement that's been going on for a long time to destigmatize these challenges, and therefore they would not support grant dollars going towards that facility.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? If not, do we have any registered speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have 15 registered speakers, many of whom have ceded their time to one individual. Your first speaker is Jay Colhagen, and he will be followed by Penelope Hayes.
Good morning, Commissioners. Is this mic on? Stakeholder Jay Collier, 34112. Hey, I don't want to really get into this fuzzy math here we got going here, but what I witnessed this past Saturday in Naples only reinforced the urgency that there's clearly a rising need for more mental health beds, especially for children. Reducing capacity at this time when demand is increasing, to me, seems short-sighted. In the current site, cannot support more beds at a reasonable cost. We need to seriously consider relocating the project to a more suitable and cost-effective location, one that can be accommodated with the original or even expanded capacity. In the meantime, I strongly urge the board to put this project back out for competitive bid, at least 3 qualified proposals reviewed publicly. That's a responsible path forward to ensure we're getting the best value and truly serving the needs of the community. Thank you for your leadership and commitment to mental health in Collier County.
Your next speaker is Penelope Hayes, and she's been ceded time from 10 additional speakers for a total of 33 minutes. I want to go through these list of people ceding time. Catherine, is it Shank? Susan Salzman? Tom Salzman? John Anderson? Sally Anderson? Kenneth, I can't read this, Kernan, thank you, sir. Alex Pagan? Bert Hayes? Oh, over there. Theodore or Teresa Pagan, there, and Cindy Brown. There, she will have a total of 33 minutes and will be followed on Zoom by April Donahue.
And there's the PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I am Penelope Hayes. I come to you as a neighbor to the DLC site and a Collier County taxpayer. I am here to shed light on the confusion that has been born from the entanglement with a potential service provider. We now have enough data and experience with this process and service provider to see that it doesn't fit. Let's begin with the Transportation Promise PUD Commitment 8E outlined by Scott Burgess himself on May 27th. In this part of Mr. Burgess's presentation, he was endeavoring to assure you that they have covered the concerns of the neighborhood. Experiences that we've testified to, including elopements into our neighborhood, loitering on our properties, and more. Mr. Burgess told you on May 27th that every discharged customer from what is now being dubbed the new facility will be offered transportation out of our neighborhood. But what he didn't say is that there's no line item in the operating budget pro forma to do that. And yet, with 87 beds on a rotation of 72-hour holds, this means an average of 10,440 discharges every year. If you estimate $15 per Uber ride, that's $156,600 a year. And it's missing, unaccounted for in their operating budget. And if a person lives farther away, you can expect $30 Uber rides, and that doubles the expense. So what happens without funding? 10,440 people per year, described on May 27th by DLC's own chairman, Edward Norton, as, quote, suffering from alcohol abuse and fentanyl addiction, end quote, will be released into our neighborhood every single year. This is either an unspoken operation cost or an enormous safety risk in the neighborhood and burden on our police department. In truth, it's both. More words without actions. False claims of monthly meetings. DLC's words don't match their actions. On May 27th, Scott Burgess stood before you under oath and said, and I quote, "We are meeting with the neighbors monthly," end quote. This is false. In November of 2022, the Planning Commission downright scolded Mr. Burgess and his team and strongly suggested that they hold regular meetings in the neighborhood. Mr. Burgess agreed to do that. And yet, they did not contact us for such a meeting until March of this year. That's nearly 3 years. There was one meeting, and ironically, the next is today at 4 o'clock, which simple math tells you it's quarterly, not monthly, as Mr. Burgess claimed in what has been an outrage to many of our neighbors. However, frankly, we don't think that meeting with DLC will suddenly make the conditions better and more peaceful and safe in our neighborhood. The point in mentioning this false claim is simply to demonstrate that an issue and to demonstrate the issue and to ask you the question, why are we trusting the words on Scott Burgess' words on such critical hinge points? So when we hear things like we promised transportation or we promised outreach, we must ask, are these real plans or just empty statements? What this process has taught us is that DLC leadership will say whatever is necessary to get what they want. It's a shell game. The confusion ends today. Let's end the tangled numbers, the contradictions, and the shell game of bed counts. Higher costs, less services, this ends today. What's the real bed count on day one before the ribbon cutting? It's been hard to watch, especially when these numbers shift at every meeting, bouncing from 15 to 33 to 48 and back again. 15 COVID beds to end soon, an expansion on DLC main campus that will add X number, and on to exhaustion. All of this is designed to distract and confuse? On May 27th, the real number of beds being moved was finally confirmed by Christy Sontag, Director of Community and Human Services, Collier County, and Scott Burgess. The number is 48. 30 CSU adult beds, 3 ESAC, 15 detox, and so the delta of 48 from 87 is 39. Not 87, not 105, 39. The transcript is up on the screen. And it ends with, okay, so you're moving 48 beds, says Ms. Sontag. Mr. Burgess says, right. The delta is 39. Also want to point out that there's no old site and new site. Let's be clear, this is not a matter of an old site and a new site. There are two distinct businesses at play here. One is the David Lawrence Center, a private entity. The other is the Collier County Receiving Center, which belongs to the public. Right now, that distinction is being blurred, and it's the very root of the issues with this site and the service provider requiring 19 meetings to try to make it work. Untangle these businesses, unentangle these businesses. Take back home court advantage. Whatever happens inside DLC, whether beds are moved, added through renovation, or teleported in from Mars, is not our business. Let's close the lid on what's happening inside DLC. We have no agency there. We have no business there. The delta of our business is 39. And do the written donor commitments exist? We are told that there is donor support, so where are the written pre-commitments? DLC has had years to secure these. If they existed, we would not be worried about the budget. Where is the proof that funding exists to cover not only the furniture, but medical equipment, but also a $900,000 plus annual operating shortfall, and let's add the $156,000 for the transportation out of our neighborhood. Will those same donors also fund in any way the major renovation? I think you just spoke to that, and they already have. That's been covered. So are the same donors being tapped for the renovation and the new project? This is so pie in the sky. The math has collapsed. We were told 105 beds for $25 million. Now it's 39 beds for $56 million. That's nearly $1.5 million per bed. And then there's the operating budget deficit, $1,056,600 per year and growing, while people on pillows on beds before a grand opening was quite a mystery, it's also not logical to say that adults coming in under Marchman Act and suffering from drug addiction and fentanyl will ever be mixed in again with children in the DLC main campus youth ward. That's illogical. But again, that's not our business. What happens inside DLC is their business. What is clear to you and your staff, and not a mystery to anyone, is that the building itself shrunk. And why? It's the site restrictions, pointed out by Ms. Patterson, as she noted on May 27th. She said, quote, height restrictions and zoning restrictions, end quote. This shrunk the project. This shrunk the services. The DLC campus site is the restricting factor. As far as the overage of $1 million plus in annual operating expenses, well, that factor is plain and simply the operating agreement with DLC and all that was traded away for the land transfer. DLC can't cover their own interests, yet it's us who have no cards, no leverage. With this deal, it's all gone with the wind. The math has collapsed, and so have the cards. Knowing that DLC could come to the county for operational funding if they cannot raise the deficit every year, we must ask, how deep are their donor pockets? When their big donors pass away, will the next generation of donors, whoever they are, make the same annual deposits? And when DLC inevitably does come back to you for more money, will you really be able to say no when there will be a lineup of speakers before you with very passionate outcries, clergy even, and DLC's board asking you to not let DLC fail? The dream, the intention, the plan for this project can be likened to a square peg that does not fit in the DLC campus round hole. This has indeed been a tangled and messy process all along the track. And perhaps when you sue your own charitable foundation to gain the land, you've muddied and marred the outcome from the start. Time, research, and years of experience trying to whittle it down has shown us that it just doesn't fit. The 2021 Board of County Commissioners vote was not a promise. Let's remember something important. The 2021 vote was not a promise to DLC, it was a motion to explore the site. There was no neighborhood information meetings noticed yet at that time, no neighborhood input, no final agreement, and certainly no financial analysis or clear business case. That vote was to collect the data that we now have. Yet, what started as an exploration has somehow steamrolled into assumption. Other operators specializing in what is needed exist. When we see Scott Burgess and his staff not able to clearly answer questions, when we see missing data and thin budgets, when we hear testimony that is misleading and we know to be untrue, we question why you are still questioning their abilities. We see a good organization, but we see them clearly out of their depth. As has been pointed out by members of this board, DLC does a good service in the community for mental health needs. Yet they do not specialize in drug addiction and fentanyl abuse. No organization is going to tell you that they cannot handle tripling their service scope. It is up to you to stop them from capsizing their entire ship. When you stand to triple your business, you should come to these meetings with an A+ presentation. This opportunity isn't a gift. It's a chance to prove you're the right fit. Any provider should treat this as the monumental opportunity that it is. While DLC could still earn a service contract at the Collier Center, this is not a DLC or nothing scenario. There are other qualified, experienced operators who specialize in this type of care. Another provider and the RFP process itself would offer competition, innovation, a well-equipped business growth plan, a much sharper pencil, and value to taxpayers. Bring this project home. Commissioners, it's time to bring this project home, back into clarity, back into the county and public control. We have excellent county staff. We have the budget. We even have sites. Let's put this out for competitive bid. Let's make balancing their own operating budget a mandatory requirement for consideration. Let's agree that a business with a plan to lose money every year is a plan to fail. No business can stay afloat that way. Let's unburden this neighborhood. Unburden the police from amplified collisions with this neighborhood. And unburden DLC from a commitment that they can't make on their own behalf. Rather, let's invite DLC and others to an RFP and see them put their best presentation forward and sharpen their pencils and be required to prove they can handle the business load. What we need is a clean start, free of the tangled mess weighing down the goal. We do not have to cut the corners off to make this fit. We've already done that, and it still doesn't fit. Let's empower Amy Patterson and our county team to take the lead. Let's create a facility that's worthy of our county. Let's make sure the service provider, whoever it is the best fit. Because right now we are standing on the edge of giving away tens of millions of dollars in taxpayer money. Let's say no today because the facts demand it and our community deserves it. Let's say yes to a state-of-the-art county facility, a smart and unrestricted location under the domain of the county and for the people. Let leadership lead. Thank you.
Your next speaker joins us on Zoom, April Donahue, and she will be followed also on Zoom by Pamela Cunningham. Ms. Donahue, you should be getting prompted to unmute yourself if you'll do so at this time. And I see that you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, commissioners and Chair and Vice Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. And I'm speaking with you on behalf of the Collier County Medical Society Board of Directors to express their support of the Collier County Behavioral Health Center and ask you to approve the David Lawrence Centers for Behavioral Health operating agreement. This will ensure that the approved construction moves forward in a timely manner. There remains a pressing need for improved mental health services for both adults and children in Collier County, and the development of this new facility represents a vital step toward meeting that need that our physician members are anxiously awaiting. The board strongly supports this initiative and would be glad to assist in any way that may be helpful. Thank you again.
Your next speaker is also on Zoom, Pamela Cunningham. Ms. Cunningham, you should be getting prompted to unmute yourself if you'll do so at this time. I see that you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dr. Pam Cunningham for the record. I emailed all of you with my thoughts on this project, but was asked to speak also on the record regarding this issue. I, in my career as a physician, have treated anyone who looks at this proposal should know that it is not the right way forward for either patients or for taxpayers. The numbers have changed drastically, leaving the county with potential for tremendous debt over a 30-year period. According to the Collier County Clerk of Courts report, with current DOJ scenarios, quote, the potential financial liability that could fall back on taxpayers is unlimited, end quote. This is not acceptable to me as a taxpayer, and it's not acceptable to me as a mother. It's not acceptable for people living on fixed incomes. I respectfully ask that you take a step back, send this project out for rebids, hire a consulting firm as needed, and come up with a scenario that is organized, that will truly help patients in need, and that will be fair to the taxpayers, both today's taxpayers and those of my children's generations. I want to briefly mention also that your lady staff member who spoke, who presented at the beginning, said that if funding gets cut, the board could vote against more funds and could terminate the contract. but what would this look like for our community? And I assume the county would not get paid back for its initial investments. As Ms. Penelope Hayes so astutely pointed out in her excellent presentation, does the David Lawrence Center have signed contracts for donors that they can provide to you as our county leaders? If this has not been done, then this burden will fall back ultimately to the taxpayers. Please vote no on this issue today and get back to the drawing board for a successful way to move forward for these patients in need. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, I was handed one other slip. It says he may or may not speak. Father Orsi, did you want to speak? And this will be our final registered speaker on this item.
First of all, I want to thank all of you who have been working for so long on this project, and I really respect many of the concerns that you have. You've helped to clarify some things for all of us, and you've also showed us where improvement is needed, at least in presentation and perhaps for future funding for the project. I also want to thank the concerns of the community. They certainly made a very fine presentation, although I think we have to look at the big picture. Big picture is we can't kick the can down the road anymore, okay? We are in a mental health crisis in our country and in this county. We have a drug problem, a mental health problem. Two of the commissioners, at least, are very familiar with what I'm talking about. Commissioner Kowal was with the Sheriff's Department. He knows the problem. Commissioner LoCastro knows the problem that we have with the hospitals. We don't even have a hospital here that can take care of people with mental health issues. I've been in and out of the hospitals. I've been involved with St. Matthew's House. This is a crisis. The finances are available. You had your penny tax collected. It started with $25 million. Well, it's up to $50 million now. And why? Look at all the years this has taken. See what COVID has done? Could we predict COVID? No. Do you see what inflation has done? Could we have predicted the inflation that we have? The answer is no. We can't predict the future, but we can predict the needs that we have right now. Perhaps, if there is need, a future Board of Commissioners will have to make other decisions. But if we do not make this decision now, today, for the expansion of the David Lawrence Center and the Central Receiving Facility, we are going to be entertaining a moral hazard for the people of our county. The sick people, the addicted people who are also sick people, but also for the general population when these people have no place to go and no place to be healed. So I encourage you, and I'm going to say this right now. Some people are concerned that Mr. Burgess will not live up to his promises. Let me tell you, Mr. Burgess will live up to his promises, and I'll be sure that he does. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, with your discretion, please, we did have someone pre-registered to speak on this item on Zoom, and they did not join us until Father Orsi was speaking. With your permission, I'd like to call on them.
Absolutely, sure.
All right, Kathy Mayo. Kathy, you should be getting prompted to unmute yourself. If you'll do so, I see that you have. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Although I highly respect Father Orsi, I have to disagree with him at this point in time. He's saying, oh, we have to do this today. It needs to be today. Well, I respectfully disagree with that. It does not have to be done today. This is, I believe, your 19th, 18th or 19th meeting regarding this situation, where it's involving over $56 million. And as the previous speaker, Penelope, had gone over so many issues and problems with this entire scenario. It's a lot of money. I believe that there should be another look at. You did it for when you were doing the budget. You had an independent come in and look at the budget. And to go from 26 million to 56 million plus, and not even have all of the delineation of everything that this encompasses, it just seems to me to be a rush decision, even though it's the 19th meeting. It definitely needs to be looked into further, get another couple of bids. It's a lot of money. It has a lot of issues that have not been addressed, and I respect you all. I sent you an email last night with some other issues that need to be looked at. And yes, we do agree. There is absolutely a need, and nobody is questioning that whatsoever. There's absolutely a need. But to spend this kind of money and not have the clarity on what really is in this, it's like the big beautiful bill and all of these gigantic bills that they have in Congress. This is our big beautiful bill for DLC, and it really needs to be looked at a little bit further and do a deeper dive. I respect all of you. I know that you all are concerned with the taxpayers, and I believe that you need to look at this further. Thank you very much for your time.
I said it before, but I mean it this time. That was our last speaker.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yes, thank you. I know he has a previous engagement. If I could, I'd like to call, I think you're a chief, aren't you? Are you a chief? Chief Roberts to the podium. And he's my friend, so I always call him Chris, so forgive me if I don't formally recognize your title, sir. Morning.
Morning.
If you could answer a couple of questions for me, please, because there again, the need with regard to this circumstance is not the question for today. My question to you is, within the existing jail facilities that Collier County has, approximately what is our average population that we have in our jail system?
So if I could put clarity to your question, I
Yes,
think
sir.
what you're talking about is a crisis or central receiving facility which would treat inmates and or patients that are currently under a Live Baker Act.
Correct.
That population in your jail today averages between 8 and 12 inmates per day. Only about 30 to 50% of those are able to be taken on the current David Lawrence Center facility, and only about 30 to 50% of those would be able to be taken on the new facility, with the remainder being folks that are violent felons that I don't think any of us want outside the secure facility of the jail.
Amen. And the overall population capacities of our jail system, do you a rough estimate, Chief, just a rough estimate is the total beds, if you will, available within the jail system currently?
The current available beds with current staffing is about 900. We actually have a rated capacity of just slightly over 1,300 beds. Obviously, staffing contracts and everything would go into increasing the population should we see a rise.
I understand. And our average population, because I remember the sheriff way back when I first became a commissioner, he was sharing with me, we were staying pretty steady at about 800 visitors. I call it the Collier County Hotel. So we were pretty level at that 800 number.
We still are pretty level between 750 and 800 on a daily basis.
So for my assumptions, the average of 800 or so still leaves a space of about potentially, and I understand the stockade in Immokalee comes in with the total beds, but about 300 spare or not utilized beds on a regular basis.
400 probably.
Plus minus, okay. And currently, when one of our deputies picks up someone who's suffering from mental illness or a substance abuse, Do we have detox facilities within the jail system itself?
No, sir, we do not. Currently, Marchman Acts are brought to the jail. We only get an average of one of those every 2 or 3 days. But essentially, we're not a treatment facility for those
I
purposes.
understand. And how about our DJJ, for the adolescent population? Is there detox facilities there?
I'm not familiar with their operations, sir. I can't answer.
Okay. Okay. That's all the questions I had for Chief. I do have a question for Ms. Sontag, if I may.
Sure. Ms. Sontag?
Thank you, Chief.
Actually, I had a question for the chief.
Don't go.
We'll get back. Don't.
He has a meeting at 11:45, so that's why I wanted to bring him up.
Mr. Colwell?
Commissioner?
How you doing, Chief?
Great, sir.
I know you is Chris also.
Yes, sir, I know. I know you.
But, you know, I chair on the Public Safety Committee, and I know we've had discussion at depth because of this crisis in the jail, because I just want to make it clear that when you have a Marchman or a Baker Act, we can't put those in general population, like, just because we have empty beds in the jail.
Correct.
We have a specialized medical facility that has this limited amount of beds, and right now, the males pretty much occupy every bed in there. Is that correct?
Actually, they overpopulate that particularly purpose-built part of our facility. As we talked about in the Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting.
We have a makeshift one for the
right.
females, which is dangerous.
The actual rated capacity of that is 26 beds. We run 35 to 40 male inmates in there, which doesn't include the females, which are typically in more need of mental health and substance abuse treatment inside the jail. And those female patients, average 20 to 30 on a daily basis, are actually housed in an old part of the old jail, which is really terrible for what we're doing there. But we have to keep them separate, and we have to, and as you're aware, we're looking to try and come back to the board and ask for money to look at remodeling the jail, because we do have extra beds that we think we could save money by remodeling them to proper facilities versus building new facility for those beds.
And I don't want to sound gruesome, but as of right now, I know at some point there was a history of a few females may have tried to commit suicide just by jumping off the upper tier, which is not actually designed to have the mentally ill people in that type of situation, correct?
That's correct, sir, yes.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Daniel?
I did have a question for Christy. I asked Mr. Burgess earlier on about the potential or not, if you will, with regard to contributions or assistance with financing. Are you aware of grant limitations from any agency with regard to assistance with financing because of the proximity to the jail system that we currently have?
Christy Sontag, Human Services Director. No, Commissioner, I am not aware of any federal or state grants that prohibit funding based on location.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no one else is lit up. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Hall?
The need is great, and it's growing.
In a moment.
As far as being a crisis, that's a stretch. Not to deny it's a growing thing, but Mr. Burgess said the DLC has the ability to meet the growing needs, which made me feel better. This particular deal has morphed into something not good. The voters agreed to spend surtax money for this very single purpose, but what they agreed to was $25 million and for David Lawrence Center to take care of all operating expenses. That's what they agreed to. Now we've morphed into $56 million, our beds, who knows where they are. We're going to build 87 beds, but out of that, 39 of them are going to be open because they're going to transfer 48. And I don't know why I don't know why all of a sudden we are including existing David Lawrence Center operations and commingling them with new taxpayer obligations. I don't know how that happened. But when I look at spending $56 million of the taxpayers' money, I only want to consider the new central receiving facility. I don't really care what happens next door. And Father Orsi mentioned it. We don't want to kick this can down the road. But there are things that I think that we can take action of as a board that would actually be faster in getting treatment for people than building a new facility at $56 million. You know, there's an underlying pressure that I don't know why people are feeling about June 22nd with the construction manager. We have to know what we're going to do because our construction contract is, we have to answer them by, so what? We shouldn't enter into doing something not smart or not well thought out because of a third party's contract. If I had a $40 million thing, I don't know what their agreement is, but I'm just going to use it round term. If I had a $40 million contract and I couldn't get a decision based on local government or decision makers, I think I would be patient. I don't think I would just flush that down the toilet because of other powers that be. But that could happen, could it not happen? I'm not going to argue that. But I'm not under any pressure at all to just forge through and make a decision based on haste. You know, when I get out of this little 200 person bubble that we're in here in local government and this subject, no one that I ever talk to even says, why are you even considering this? Why? This is crazy. If this was private business, this would be like, why are you even discussing this? But it seems to be allowed that we can talk about it because of public money. And I've said it before, I just can't go forward. It's not about the cause. The cause is noble. The cause is felt. I mean, it's growing. We acknowledge that. But there are other options. On July the 2nd, the Willow facility comes open. It's under contract now by a faith-based entity. We don't know much about that. But on July the 2nd, they have to put up or shut up. And I would personally like to postpone this decision until we find out we could purchase that facility and remodel it a lot faster than we could, and David Lawrence Center could operate there. They could operate there. They could partner with faith-based businesses. They could partner with other people who do substance abuse, because there's no one better with the mental health aspect than the David Lawrence Center. That's unquestionable. But there are people that I feel like are stronger suited for substance abuse. They could partner with those people in a government-owned facility. And surtax money could pay for it. They could share revenues, they could share expenses, and they could share expanded services. It seems like it's a decent exit strategy than just forging through with this one. I would like to see us not be under pressure to make a hasty decision just because we said we did, just because we said we would, just because we get under pressure to do something piecemeal. You know how I'm going to vote today, so however it turns out, it's going to turn out.
Commissioner LaCastro.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to commend Ms. Hayes for giving a concise briefing. I've said before, we need to sort of, not to be disrespectful, kind of dumb it down and just get to the brass tacks, and you definitely did. I do want to give the other side a chance to address some of those things, because in some of the points you made, there's definitely meat on the bone, but I'd love to hear, their rebuttal to it, because I haven't yet. You presented a few new things that are definitely worth a response back. So while somebody from David Lawrence Center gets ready to take the podium, I'll just make a couple statements. I wish we did this deep of a dive on other things that we spend taxpayer dollars on, many of them much less critical. When the term has been thrown around saying, this has morphed and grown in size, I blame the county for that. Shame on us. It didn't morph in size due to poor leadership. It morphed in size due to 18 meetings. And so apartment buildings have morphed in size over the last few years. Houses, anything that we build. The sports complex, if we built it today, it would cost a lot more money. I'm sure if Great Wolf Lodge came to us today, they would want more than $15 million that we gave them. And imagine what we could have done with that money for mental health. I respect what Commissioner Hall says, but I want to go on the record saying I do care what happens next door in David Lawrence Center, because I think what we're trying to do, whether it's David Lawrence Center or another company, and there's plenty of them who do it. I don't know if a bunch of them are breaking our door down to do it here, but putting the two missions together is creating a cohesive approach to addressing mental illness. So it's not about popping a bunch of satellite facilities all over Collier County and pouting ourselves on the back. I'm not saying that this location it's this or nothing, but I do think whatever we build and wherever we build it, it has to be connected to David Lawrence Center and maybe another contractor if we wind up going in a different direction. But together, it creates a cohesive approach to healthcare. When I was the COO of Physicians Regional, I used to say one of our closest allies should be NCH, because even though they're a competitor, they should also be somebody that we cohesively work with. At the time, I don't think we were doing it very well, but I commend NCH and Paul Hiltz and his team for not only reaching out to Physicians Regional, but Lee Health, and you see how much a rising tide lifts all boats. But, Mr. Burgess, some things I'd like you to specifically address, and you can obviously say whatever you want, but some things that Ms. Hayes brought up that definitely is worth, I want to hear the rebuttal or the confirmation is the Uber rides. You sit here and you start adding those up and doing the math, and I want to know if you think it's funny math or some people come with their own cars. Not everybody's going to Uber everywhere. It's been brought up before, and maybe it's not something that's going to change any votes here, but when anybody says, hey, I'm gonna have monthly meetings with the citizens, and I'm not trying to throw rocks or spears, but I'm trying to get to the center of integrity and thought, and your rebuttal might be, well, I tried to have monthly meetings, but they didn't want to have them or something, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I'd like you to specifically address that. So the Uber rides, the monthly meetings, you did address the beds, but I went on record at the last meeting saying 3 different speakers came up here and did a shell game of the beds. So, okay, we got a slide now that finally showed clear math, but in some of the minds of the commissioners here, we're still sitting here going, okay, which is the real slide? So I'm hoping you can either, confirm that. And then anything else that you want to address. I think that, this is the day where we're gonna make a decision, and hopefully we don't kick the can to a 18th or 19th meeting. But sir, those are some of the questions I have. I'd like you to specifically address some of the things that Ms. Hayes brought up, and then anything that you made notes on.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to address those, and I was trying to keep track, as you were, of the items that were salient to make sure that we talked about. In regards to transportation, your point is very well taken, that the mathematics that were presented here today by Penelope is assuming that everybody is going to leave the center and is going to need an Uber ride. So first of all, we've got many individuals that have family members or friends that come pick them up. So right off the top, it's not going to be the number that was presented. However, the number that she presented was $156,600, if I copied that down correctly, and I think I did. We have built into the pro forma that for the first year, and successive years, but in the first year, $141,000 is built into the pro forma specifically for transportation.
How much, I'm sorry?
$141,000. So even using her analysis and building in $156,600 for every individual that would need to have transportation, which is not going to be the case. We have built in a very significant number to attend to that. In regards to the meetings, we did start holding those meetings after the Board of County Commissioners decided that they were going to move forward with the project. That was in January. And we've had one meeting. At the initial meeting with the neighbors, we asked them how regularly they wanted to get together, and their response was quarterly. So we have our second quarterly meeting that's scheduled for today. So I wanted to respond to that. In regards to the discussion that was, if they don't have any written pre-commitments from individuals pledging a commitment to this initiative. We actually do already have pledges and funds that have been raised for the central receiving facility in the amount of $1.27 million. That's to help, and that was part of the naming rights agreement for specific things in the central receiving facility, which you're aware of, furniture, fixture, equipment, and that can go for operations. So to speak to the fact, and that's just very recently that was passed. So we do have an ability to rally the community around supporting this initiative in addition to DLC. In regards to the beds, I will simply reflect back on the slide that I showed today, which is 33 permanent beds on the DLC Bathy Lane campus for children, and we'll have 87 new beds in the central receiving facility for 120. That's what's going to be for crisis care, Baker Act, Marchman Act, adults and children available through those locations.
Can you address grant availability? Because even though Ms. Sontag said, she has no knowledge of if we put this in a different location, and that's not throwing a stone at her, she might not be the subject matter expert. Boy, I would sure hope you're the subject matter expert on how to get grant money. And so I'd like to hear, I know you addressed it, but for the sake of a big, huge vote here of tens of millions of dollars, that is a piece of the puzzle. Yeah. I'd like to hear something with more meat on the bone and not just, you heard somebody say a while ago that if we built it next to the jail, we'd be ineligible for a bunch of grant money, because I'm hearing it from both sides. I'm appreciating what Commissioner McDaniel is trying to get to, and then asking Ms. Sontag may or may not be the subject matter expert. I would sure hope you're one of the subject matter experts, and maybe at the county staff we just don't happen to have somebody that can cite rhyme and line and everything about grants. But I'd like to put a little bit more clarity on if we move the location, we might be gypping ourselves out of millions and millions of dollars of possible, grant money or not.
Yeah.
That's a big muscle movement as part of the decision.
And I understand, and I don't know that there's anything in specific statute that would say that it could not be on a jail campus. What I'm saying is the conversation that we had with our local managing entity, which is the conduit through which grant dollars flow from the state, they were emphatic about the fact that they would not support giving grant dollars to any provider that would put a central receiving facility on a jail campus because of stigma, and that would take us back decades from what we've been trying to do, which is to destigmatize, decriminalize mental health, and that it would be going 180 degrees from what the intention is in moving mental health treatment forward in our country and within our state. So they did not support, they have the right to be able to dole those dollars out based on their receiving applications for support.
I'll tell you what I heard, and this will be at least my final statement for now, was something more in the middle. It was, and I wish I had a name and a date of the meeting and whatnot, and maybe you'll say I heard it wrong, but what I had heard was that we would be far less competitive. Not that we couldn't get the dollars, but that we sure wouldn't be high on a priority list possibly for different grant dollars. So, the answer might be somewhere in the middle, but I just wanted to hear you restate it with a little bit more clarity of how you feel it is. I don't think it's the one and only decision that's going to sway this, but we're trying to sort of peel away at all the different sort of ambiguities here. That's all I have for right now.
Mr. Yovanovitch, you had a couple comments you wanted to make.
Yes, thank you. Rich Yovanovitch, for the record, on behalf of the David Lawrence Center. Specifically with regard to the beds, I think the slide we showed, and I'll admit it was a little less clean when we presented it a couple of weeks ago. But there's no question that there's going to be a total of 120 beds, 33 of which contractually we're now obligated to maintain at the David Lawrence Center, and 87 new beds in this central receiving facility. I think what's being lost in the conversation is this is a central receiving facility. What does that mean? It means that when someone is having an episode, they are specifically taken to this facility. So if they're an adult, wherever this facility is located, they're going to the central receiving facility. So to somehow penalize David Lawrence Center because it would be next door, because adults are now going to go to the right instead of to the left seems to be an unfair penalty to David Lawrence Center, because they're going somewhere else regardless when the central receiving facility is being built. But David Lawrence Center is saying there's a tremendous shortfall in taking care of people less than 18 years old. We're going to make up for that by keeping those 33 beds. So for the good of the group, the good of our community, we're going to have 120 beds to deal with Marchman Act and Baker Act, and that's what the voters wanted, 120 beds. You're getting 120 beds for $56 million. It's not the David Lawrence Center's fault that construction costs have increased. Everybody's construction costs have increased. This is the cost of these beds is less than the average to build new beds throughout the country. It is the right location. That location was decided. It's time to build the buildings, and it's time to provide the services. And with that, I think that's all I wanted to add to Scott's presentation. And I think we've addressed the comments from the community. We just want to make sure that the facts are on the record, and we believe the facts are now on the record. And any other questions you have of David Lawrence Center, we're here.
All right. I have a couple questions for Ms. Patterson. I kind of put you on the spot here a little bit, but there's been some concern that perhaps this project has not been well thought out in terms of the scope of the project, in terms of the location. We did have a unanimous vote to place this on this particular location back, I guess it was 2021. Whenever that vote was, I've got the transcript here. It was a unanimous vote to do that. But the issue of the planning for this, I know we had the committee that met for quite some time. I know we had a tremendous amount of input over the years. But can you give me just a little quick summary of how we kind of got to where we are in terms of the process? We've had 19 meetings, and I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but I just want to get an understanding of, this has not been, in my recollection, something that has not been well thought out. But I want to hear this from either you or someone that you know that can answer that.
Absolutely. I'll start, and then if any of our facilities folks, Mr. Dunnick or Mr. Deloney, want to come up because they have been involved since we started the process to actually engineer the site and deal with the building. So obviously there, years ago now, predating this board, there was a siting committee that looked at sites all over, and for reasons that were explained later, the several top sites that were listed in that study were not selected, part to do with some of the things that have been discussed today about concerns about the central receiving facility being on campus, but secondly is the synergy of placing the central receiving facility next to the existing, or adjacent to the existing David Lawrence Center. With that, we proceeded on to the process of getting that property properly zoned, hearing the concerns of the neighborhood. So there was an extensive land use. Oh, there's actually a slide that addresses this, but an extensive land use a process that we went through, so that, as you described, we have spent 18-ish, 19 meetings talking about everything to do with this project. Once that site was decided, the David Lawrence site for the central receiving facility, this has been in the county's wheelhouse for the planning, as well as then the site engineering, and then the now moving on to the construction. So yes, it's been a partnership. There's been a lot of thought that has gone into it for the site and for the building itself, but also that it had to meet the requirements of the site. So the building has to be able to fit based on how the site was zoned, and that's the discussions. Also, other requirements, security, a wall, how people are going to be taken into the facility were all things that have been part of this process. I'm looking at Mr. Deloney if he wants to add, because he's the lead for the county on this property.
This may be a question for Mr. Burgess or somebody on David Lawrence Center team there. The actual design of the building. I'm assuming that there was some expertise applied to coming up with the design, that we're not just building a building out of the dark. Can you give me a bit of information as to how we got to the footprint and the building that we have.
Sure. As Ms. Patterson was alluding to, this has been a completely collaborative process between the county that is the lead. It is their construction management team that has the oversight over this project. In addition to the county, obviously David Lawrence Center having had expertise across all these decades in behavioral health. In addition, brought to the team through contract from the county directly, who was selected by the county, was RG Architects, which has a specialty in these particular types of buildings, behavioral health buildings. They have a specialist on their team that they brought in as an additional consultant just on behavioral health as well. So we have, and in addition to that, the construction team that was selected is DeAngelis Diamond, who has built behavioral health facilities not only in Florida but other states. So we really, I want to commend the county for bringing together an amazing team of professionals who understand these facilities well. They understand the regulatory requirements. They understand the unique design that is unique to these behavioral health settings. So all of those staff members have been meeting with great regularity. Inclusive of that team is also the Collier County Sheriff's Office, who is at every meeting, so that we can ensure the safety standards that our community specifically would like to have is addressed in this facility as well. So, and these meetings have been going on with great regularity for a very long time.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yes. My questions are not for you. It's Christy Sontag, please, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what you do for the county?
I'm the Community and Human Services Director for the county. I'm responsible for all federal and state entitlement and other grants from Department of Justice, DCF, a variety of grants, and then I'm also responsible for social service programs like to seniors and homeless.
Yes, and I you know, I'm not debating with Commissioner LaCastro with regard to who is a subject expert one way or the other, and certainly Mr. Burgess is very succinct with his requests for grants with regard to mental health and such. But I just wanted. I wanted the folks to know the reason I asked you that question earlier on was because from an independent basis, to your knowledge, there's no prohibitions with regard to grant funding that could come for this facility if it were not located in this spot.
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any.
And thank you.
Thank you.
I certainly, I've been participatory, I think, in all 19 meetings that we've had so far with regard to this. The planning is off the chart. The facility sounds like it's going to be off the chart. I still am not in support of the proposition that's in front of us. From a planning standpoint, I had to bring last year, I had to bring minutes from a previous meeting to denote the fact that the county had entered into a lease to operate the facility, but no performance measured operating agreement. And then they went, oh, that we didn't have an operating agreement. We now have an operating agreement. I'm dissatisfied with that. I cannot get happy with the circumstances that are prevalent here today. I would rather we not postpone this decision. I would rather we do something different. I have said from the beginning, the facility needs to be here on campus, as was recommended before. Here is a copy of that mental health plan that you talked about. I did review this. There's a lot of really, really small print, Mr. Burgess, but I couldn't find in here where it said that there were limitations on the capacities to receive grants. That's why I asked Christy, and I asked you specifically. I think we need to go out for an RFP for this operation, no matter what. I certainly, on behalf of the taxpayers of Collier County, cannot accept a business plan that talks about, even perceives on losing $1 million plus a year in perpetuity. I can't even conceive giving that consideration. I think we need to take measures immediately. I think we need to give direction to our current staff immediately to work with our sheriff's department to enhance the facilities that we already have on site, to better care for our residents, a lot better allow for our sheriff's department to do their job, take these people, treat these people with respect, allow them to go through the process, have some kind of programming in place. I think our money is far better spent investing in Collier County assets on campus where we have facilities, where we have a transportation system already in place, big public bus system, where we have a health department, where we have the court system in the event that that's requisite as well. All of those things still add up to a no for me.
Commissioner Castro.
Thank you, Chairman. I think when it comes to grants, I think we're all correct, but I think I'm the most correct. I'm just going to say that. I do believe that Ms. Sontag is correct when she says she's not aware. Being not aware doesn't mean a definite no. I do think when I posed the question, and I wish I did have the transcript from whoever I met with, it's not a matter of yes or no. There are some things where you just don't qualify, and nobody has said that here. If they were certain of it, you'd have it in your binder. What I believe is what I remember being told is that it's a sliding scale, just like anything else. You know, our veterans nursing home is a perfect example. It's not a yes or a no. It's a matter of where you compete and are you a high enough priority. I don't think that changes any of the votes up here, but I think we're all correct in some way. But I'm the most correct. I'm just kidding. Mental health isn't a profit-making business. How much do we profit every year off of our parks? Even our Paradise Coast Sports Complex, which costs 4 times the amount of this, we have a lot of numbers in parentheses, but it provides a service. When I think of I hate that it was said somewhere, the amount of customers. These are patients, okay? These aren't customers. You know, this is and it may be semantics or whatever, but having worked in healthcare and whatnot, it does bother me when it said that. But regardless of that, most of the people that you see don't live in Port Royal. They don't get picked up by a Bentley. So it is going to cost money if this county wants to have better mental health and more services. You know, we have I think a member back there, Matt Holliday from NCH, and we sing NCH's praises. But one of the things NCH made a command decision on was, you know, not providing significant health services. When I was at Physicians Regional, I was speaking till the cows came home, saying, why don't we add that as a service line? And you know what the answer was? Because it doesn't make us money. It costs us too much money. And then the liability is huge. We'd rather turn that area into a wound care center, which is a high profit margin. So I'm not as bothered. I would expect the numbers to be negative, but I would also think with your 56 years of experience of DLC that if this facility was built, it would fan the flames that much more of people who would be interested and new money coming in, because you have an expanded service and you would have a whole new brochure, you know, asking for money. So I'll just put that there. I have a question for Ms. Patterson. You've been in all the big meetings, maybe not 19, but lately trying to get this here. My question, similar to like Ms. Hayes' presentation, which is, you know, just brass tacks, are we really that far away right now in an agreement between the county and David Lawrence Center that, you know, we approve things here that are of this magnitude that still have loose ends, that still have things to tighten up? And yeah, at times we totally shoot it down if we're miles apart and we're taking great risk. But, you know, in your estimation, are we really that far apart? And before you answer that, I'll then just add, so that I don't have to talk anymore, the Willows and this is apples and chairs. Okay, so if we truly want to have a state-of-the-art facility that the taxpayers voted for, yeah, we could have got it for $23 million with a lot more beds if we would have built it when we had the money and it was approved and we didn't kick the can. But that train left the station. But taking over a facility that's aged, not set up the way that we want and all that, it still gives us the service line, but make no mistake, it's not a matter of, well, we're not going to do it at DLC, so we'll head over to the Willows, get the keys to the facility. And I think you probably would echo some of that there's some long poles in the tent with the Willows or another agency. But having said that, let me turn the floor over to you. How far apart do you really think that we are? And many other comments that you want to make, since you've really been our senior representation and been trying to, bring this together, whether it's David Lawrence Center or another location.
Yes, sir. So we have provided an operating agreement that we negotiated in good faith and brings us the protections to the county that we were seeking. How far apart we are is really a decision for this board on whatever risk they feel comfortable taking, having been provided all of the information now that's been requested about the pro forma, the number of beds, potential shortfalls, and what the cures are for those things if they should happen. None of us have the ability to know what might happen tomorrow, let alone into the distant future, but both sides, I believe, have done a good job at providing that information so that this board can make an informed decision. Regarding the Willow, what that would provide, if it were an option, would be immediate beds with the ability to eventually plan for a new facility or a greatly reconstructed facility. So it's still an interim solution. Now, whether that interim is 5 or 10 years, and whether that facility will even be available. They may close on that facility and it's off the table. So any built facility that's in the area, if we were to buy another building, if one was provided, chances are it's not going to be something that's perfect forever, but would provide something that we would use to deal with the immediate issues and then do the planning to look at what it would look like in the future. The David Lawrence site provides that to be state of the art from day one. And so those are the decisions that this board is weighing. It's really a decision for all of you having experienced some or all of these 19 meetings to say, considering all of this, have we adequately protected the taxpayers as well as tried to move forward a project that's very important to the Collier County voters? And that's as simple as it is.
Commissioner Colwell.
Thank you, Chairman. I've been getting a lot of contact from friends on both sides of this fence, telling me the way I should think or not think. And, and a lot of people just keep regurgitating talking points and what ifs. I went through my life not depending on what ifs, because sometimes they never equate to anything in the future. I can probably speak to this. I'm probably the only person here that's ever, on this board, that's ever had to take a Marshman or a Baker Act in a ride in a patrol car while they're in crises across the county to get them help. I want everybody to understand, not everybody that's a Baker Act or a Marshman has a crime connected to it. The only crime is that they have an illness. And even in the state statute, every time I've had to take a person in under that provision that is provided me by the state of Florida as a Marshman Act or a Baker Act, they're referred to as a victim. We say the victim, then the name. Everywhere in that report, everywhere in the paperwork, they're referred to as a victim. And a percentage are just victims. They've not committed any crime. Like I said, the only thing is that they have some sort of mental stability or an alcohol dependency where their families, loved ones, friends cannot take it anymore or cannot care for these people. That's when the state kicks in and gives us the ability, deputies, police officers, EMS, firefighters, doctors, some nurses, to enact a Baker Act or a Marshman Act. And if you've ever driven in a car 30 miles to get to David Lawrence Center from one end of the county to the other, with an adult individual kicking the window, trying to kick the window out, trying to kick the cage out, and then when you get there, You got another 30 or 45-minute wait because they have a very small receiving facility with only 3 beds to get through that door. You sit in that parking lot with that individual in that condition. That then being said, you get them the help they need. And the sad part is we're talking about having things near the jail, improving the jail, creating space in jail. Listen, the reality is that jails are meant for criminals, not victims. And a percentage have never committed a crime, and that's where you want to take them. This can's been kicked down the road. David Lawrence didn't create the $56 million problem we're all looking at. It is the fact that government failed to respond and get something done when the time was asked to get it done. That's why this price tag is where it is today. And if you look at what David Lawrence is, they're actually putting it out because they're agreeing to everything this county and our attorneys in this contract that we've asked for, especially safeguards. And I will answer the question, I think somebody presented, would we be out the $56 million if we drop and just say, no, we're not going to fund you because you're a shortfall? No, it's in there. It's written in the contract. They have to pay us back in full. And I think with extras that may have been accrued. So that's in the contract. But I just want to make sure we understand that what we're looking at, either having a state-of-the-art facility that the people of Collier County deserves, and now's the time to build it because it's not going to get any cheaper. That's just the fact. And I can what if it, what if I get a building here, or what if, I was all excited when I heard about the Willows, but then it didn't come to fruition. Somebody else has money on it. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm going to wait around, the deal's going to fall through. That's a what if, and that's not what I'm about. I'm sorry. But Collier County deserves it. The juveniles in Collier County deserve it. We don't have the ability to keep our juveniles within our own county when they're in crisis. There's times where they'd be shipped out to Fort Myers, Hendry County, and that's a burden on a parent with a 14-year-old or 13-year-old that's in crisis, where they got to drive 2 counties or a county away just to visit their child while they're getting treatment. That's unfair to the citizens of Collier County. It's unfair to the parents of Collier County. And by this contract and the way the numbers add up now, finally, we're going to gain beds for these juveniles to be treated right here in Collier County. So, listen, I'm done kicking the can down the road. I think this is probably our best option, and probably going to be the best option that we even could find in the future. So, I have to support this.
All right, I'm going to make a motion just to get this on the floor. I think we've beaten this horse a bit here today and over the last 18 or 19 meetings. We have a staff recommendation. I want to make sure I get the right motion. So I'm going to read the motion. If the board wishes to proceed with the construction of this facility, the following actions are required. Approve and execute a 4th amendment to the vacant land contract with David Lawrence Mental Health Center, Inc. to modify the Collier County Standard Form long-term lease and include an operating agreement exhibit governing behavioral health center operations, and approve and execute an amendment to the naming rights agreement to clarify use of funds acquired with the naming rights. Ms. Patterson, is that the correct, if we want to approve this going forward, is that the correct motion?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to make that motion. Commissioner LaCastro, you're lit up, so we're on the motion. If there's a second. So right now we don't have a second.
I second.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to say is I'd rather have a few loose ends, but be negotiating and working as in a team with David Lawrence Center than some unknown third party who is yet to be determined. We've spent way more money than this on things that, I like what Commissioner Cole had to say. There's always what ifs. You know, we sat here at our last meeting saying, if we had to build the sports complex all over again, we would put in more grass fields and baseball fields. So there's always going to be something like this. But I'm looking at the bigger picture as another person said here, and I think we had our chance to sort of do all these tiny little things at 19 different meetings, but I think we're sitting in front of us here with an opportunity to to tighten up this plan, but I think we already have something that's headed in a great direction. Don't forget, David Lawrence Center, their reputation's on this as well. So in the end, I don't think they want to crash and burn because they were short, $50,000 for furniture or that sort of thing. So I think some things have been thrown around that that negate some other things. So I was going to second the motion. It sounded like Commissioner Kowal already did, but just, as Commissioner Saunders says, sometimes just to count heads and either move forward or not. I'm going to be in support of this, but it doesn't mean I'm going to take my eyes off of this plan. We're going to have to move forward and make sure that, if we need grass fields, we measure twice and cut once, and that we don't sit here and just kick the can or vote on something and then look the other way and hope it all turns out great. But I'd rather work as a partner with the David Lawrence Center on this location and fine tune it as we move forward. Haven't even put a shovel in the ground, and that's why I'm going to support it as well.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, forgive me for stuttering, but I can count noses, so I'm going to say my piece. There are other operators that are willing to operate a facility for us. I have spoken to two, and out of respect for DLC, and I shared this with Mr. Burgess yesterday, I have an enormous amount of respect for DLC. They have done an enormous amount for our community of good over the years. I don't like this transaction. I think we haven't informed ourselves sufficiently to vote on this, just simply because we never put this project out for an RFP. We don't even know what other operators that may be out there that might be interested in coming over and working with us. I'm not talking about kicking this can down the road. I'm talking about taking immediate action on known circumstances and known facilities that we in fact have available to us today to work on the circumstances of the crisis that in fact exists. But be that as it may, I promise that I will work with our board, our staff, and David Lawrence Center to make this as successful of a facility as it possibly can be.
One last comment, then I'll call for the vote. I want to congratulate our staff, the manager, County Attorney's Office, Ms. Askar. There were a couple issues that needed to be resolved. The bed count was one. The commitment for ongoing obligations by the County Commission going forward due to shortfalls or potential shortfalls, that's been resolved. I've reviewed the contract. I think we've got an excellent partnership with David Lawrence Center. And so all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-2. And that's the motion to cover all of the agreements as I outlined in the motion. We're going to take a break till 1:15 for lunch.
There's no clap.